Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me this week, as always, it is my co-host. It's Tommy. How you doing, Tom?
Hello, friends.
Buddy, if it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer. It's good to have you. It's good to see you again, sir. Good to have you back. We are a little late starting today. I'll call it collectively 30% my fault, 70% Tom's fault today.
It's just building the anticipation for the community is just waiting on bated breath.
That must be what it is, Tom. Yes, you've accurately identified it, clearly. Also joining us this week, back again, it's Tyler Emerson. Tyler, how you doing, brother? It's good to have you on the show.
Good, yeah. Thanks for having me again, gentlemen. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. He's recording from the bunker, as we can see. From it. I assume that if you turn it around, you'll just see like a Batmobile or something in there. That's some kind of garage wherein you're hiding your secret lair. So
it is reasonably impressive, actually. The garage. We put a lot of work into it, but I'll leave it to the imagination. I don't.
There you go. It's always better that way. Yeah. Absolutely. All right, so we have actually quite a lot of news this week. In an unusual way, it was a big news week. So,
like small news week, like a big small,
smalls.
Yeah,
a lot of big smalls.
A lot of big smalls. Like there's no like world breaking, but there's just a lot of miscellaneous stories.
No, like the Fishman army didn't break or anything like that, right? Like that didn't happen. Yes.
Oh, it's coming.
Sure. We're going to talk tonight about, for our feature segment, we're going to talk about the current meta. Tyler, you just got back from Slobberknocker over the last weekend. We're going to talk about what you saw. He brought some awesome picks, including some shots of my main man, my favorite army that has ever seen paint, and that is the army of Mr. Bleep Bloop, Mr. Bill Bloop.
Yes.
And it is a just wait. It is a marvel to behold. If you have not seen it, I pity you, but we're going to remedy that situation. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the current meta, where we see it, and of course, where we think it might go based on what we've seen in GHB2 thus far. Because we've had a lot of sort of movements spoiled. And we'll talk about some of that controversy that has come up around what we discussed last week, especially the controversy raised by one Mr. Doom and Darkness as he luxuriates by a pool in Thailand. He's stirring up controversy.
I missed this. I haven't even seen that yet.
Oh, it was so good.
I'll have to wait and find out as well. All right.
It's a great. We'll get to it in my pick of the week. But anyways, no stealing my Doom and Darkness pick of the week video. We'll get there. Let's get to some news.
Well, you've ruined it. That's my video. So I don't have one this week. Thanks.
There you go. Called it in advance. Suck it, Tom. No, that's fine. I want to share. You can have it as long as it gets mentioned. But let's do news.
Okay. Rumor engine. Blood Bowl Elf. Do we need to see more?
It's the Blood Bowl Elf. It's a spiky shoulder pad. I don't even feel like showing the picture. It's the Blood Bowl Elf.
Why not Chaos? I mean, that was my first Chaos or Elf. Obviously, Elf. We expect that to be forthcoming shortly. Elven Union, but why not Chaos?
We saw the CAD drawing. They had shared the CAD drawing of the Blood Bowl Elf a little while back. And it is a exact replica of that. I mean, like shape, size, placement of the spike, placement of the little round circle that's like attaching the shoulder pad to the strap. Like it is that. It is the Blood Bowl Elf. So Blood Bowl Elf star player. There you go.
There we go.
He's coming. So more important news. Mortarion leaked.
Yeah, man. Let's take a look at this guy. Here's what I want to know. I'm going to share it up here. Don't worry. I'm about ready to share. So for all you Nurgle players, get ready. But here's the question. What is everybody going to convert this into in AOS? Does this just become a Demon Prince?
Demon Prince.
Converted.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you recognize that?
Go ahead. I'm ready. What?
That's the Celestin Prime.
Oh, sure.
He's actually like flying on a pile of trash. Like truly now. Like
sure.
They took our space junk comment and they're like, "Yep, we got it. Mortarion's coming."
Sure. Yes, I was going to make a Celestin Prime joke, but I mean, clearly no one's going to use this. Well, I shouldn't say that. Somebody's going to use this model as a Celestin Prime. Somebody always does everything. But this isn't a natural stand-in for a Celestin Prime. I meant more like, what are people going to use this for in their normal Nurgle AOS forces? Because This guy is easily flipping into fantasy. Like, he is a left-hand gun away from being a fantasy model. Right? I mean, his weapon's a giant scythe.
Yeah, I don't know is the answer.
So what do you think of him, Tom? When you saw him, were you excited for this?
Honestly, I was like, because he looks so honestly, because he looks so much like Celestin Prime. Like it, yeah. Like I don't know that I could look at him and not see Prime. Like honestly, I want to know what he's floating on. Yeah, I said that flippantly, with the pox bearers or the pox walkers, whatever that are in front. But like, what is holding him up? Because that's actually the most interesting point.
I think it's his robe. I think he's just on the strands of his robe.
Yeah, to me, that's what I like. Because again, I don't know. I think he's going to be too big for a demon prince. That's the problem.
I don't think he is. He's not that big. I think he's about the size of a demon of the like current box demon prince.
Like because on a 50 mil round. Think about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, most of him is off the ground. He's like those are Death Guard beneath him. They're down and a little behind him, but a couple of them are. But he's not that much bigger than them. He's not like Magnus the Red sized or something, right?
Yeah, I'll have to see him on the table. Is what I would say.
Sure. One of the things I was actually quite excited about for him was his wings. Those are fantastically awesome wings and a wonderful bit for other conversions in other armies. If you want to do like other insectoid things, I could see people doing like an Alariel conversion and use those wings to make her more dragonfly. Like, yeah, exactly. Yep.
Demon Prince right now is on a 60 millimeter.
Oh, there you go. He's on a 60 mil round.
That's still not redeeming the size of like his wingspan is probably like 120.
Sure, but wings always overlap the base. That's the like, dude. Archaon's wings go so far beyond his base.
No, I agree. I don't know. Like I said, I'll have to see him next to stuff. Like I'll probably end up getting him. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't going to.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know.
I have to say he's gross, but I was rather impressed by the model. I think he's I actually quite liked the design.
So I wonder if there's an Archaon conversion there.
In what way? Like how so?
Like, so, green stuff over the wings or whatever on the back, figure out something to do with the legs and actually put him on Dorgar. You know how we were talking about doing an Archaon conversion for each of the different gods?
For every god,
yeah. So to replace the actual Archaon model with him.
Make him the rider on top of a Nurgle. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there might be legs there. Yeah.
Because he's probably not that big.
Well, Archaon himself is a little bit larger, just proportionally.
Yes. So, like, yeah, he's big. He's ogre sized.
Yes. Yep.
Archaon is. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that could potentially work. So that's what I would probably do with him.
Yeah, he looks Alariel sized to me.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. Scaled up. Right. Alariel's a good comparison. Like Alariel is not. It's not a normal elf size.
Right.
No.
Like she's significant. If you put her next to a normal elf, she looks like a giant. Like honestly, she looks like a 54 millimeter scale model.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, because she doesn't have like she's sized like a normal human, just at a larger scale. So,
what I want to know is what the hell is up top in that balcony up there?
Yeah, that's what I was leaning into when I was looking at it because.
Well, yeah, and the problem is
art. Like this.
There's clearly a bloat drone up there, but there's so much like different things going on, in this picture, and the picture is obviously not super high quality. So it's kind of tough to parse out. Like, everything is it's kind of fuzzy when you zoom way in. And I spent some time zooming way in because I wanted to see his face. And like, there was a picture going around Twitter that was pretty similar that was a little more clear than what got shared on the web.
So what time tomorrow do you think that's going to show up?
Are you saying, the picture? Like on
the Warhammer community page?
Sure. I mean, yeah. What time does business start in the UK?
So here's the question: do they have a segment tomorrow on Mortarion? And because it's in the studio, like inside the studio tomorrow for Warhammer Live, and so I'm wondering if they slip in like a 20-minute segment on Mortarion.
They'll probably just show the model on Warhammer Live, right? I mean, that's what they've done that before when things have leaked. They just bring the model out. They have the studio painted when they're they have that one. It's in that building. It's not exactly a tricky thing to find. So they'll just put it on camera because there's no reason not to at this point.
Yep. No, it's true.
If anyone wants to schedule their crack addiction a little more thoughtfully, Warhammer community, they have 2 periods that they post. So Central Time, it's always around 1 o'clock is the second. I think the first is, it's early morning. It's like maybe 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock my time, Central Time.
Sure.
Yeah, they do 2 posts early and then 2 posts in the afternoon.
Nice. Well, there you go. So that way you know when to look. Yes, that's fair. It's good to keep your timing down. That way you don't have to check it all day. No, it's important to keep in mind.
That's hilarious.
But yes, very exciting. I thought he was a super cool model for sure.
Yeah. Again, like as soon as I saw him, I thought, not Primarch. I thought Celston Prime, and the problem is that like I can't unsee that now.
It's the cloak. It definitely adds to it. Yeah.
In the down position of the arms.
The arms,
like wings up, down position of the arms.
Yeah.
It's just, there's just too much there. Now, again, obviously it's not the same model, like, but it's just the actual position of the model itself is striking. Like it's similar. Yeah. Anyways, but I like I said, it's not stop me from buying it. So, also of news this week, I had shared on Twitter previously, Forge World open models. So there's a return of a number of models. Chief amongst those is the rogue idol of Gork or Mork. And man, am I excited. Like, I'm like, I could probably get another one, maybe 2. Like, that dude is my hero. I love that guy.
He's sweet. And he's back in business, baby. It's good to see him. It's such a great model. It's very characterful, the army. It's also easy and fun to paint. Let me just start out there. It's not that hard to make the big rock guy look pretty good. That's a nice thing. Yeah, I was glad to see that. I'd love to see more kind of unusual ones like that come back into wider availability.
So here's the question. Is there hope for the Chaos Mammoth? The War Mammoth?
I mean, I wouldn't have guessed. Here's what I'll say. Yes, sure. Simple answer. Yes. Because if you would have asked me last week, is Forge World going to start producing the rogue idol of Gork again? My answer would have been like, nah, I don't think so, man. That seems not likely.
Let me just say,
here it is.
Over the course of the last 2 years, the number of times where Vince, I've heard you say, if you'd asked me last week if GW would X.
Yeah, I say it all the time, right? Because again, prediction. That's why I stay away from predictions in general, right? That's why I'm glad you don't ask me, because my answers would constantly be, I don't know. I suppose anything's possible, as it just was.
Yeah.
So sure. I hope so. That mammoth is pretty sweet. And don't get me wrong, I like the Mumak as a stand-in, but the mammoth is bigger. Yeah.
Like I'm going to I have a Mumak, and every time I go to try to convert him, I'm just like, it's just not the same. And so I just move on to a different project.
Well, you know what you could do, Tom? You could give me that Mumak. I'll take care of it for you. Don't worry. He's got a home in my Zinchi army, just ready to go. We'll get him out of that gross Nurgle pit you're trying to stick him into, and we'll make him one of the proud.
Vince,
yes.
Here's the deal. If they release
the real War Mammoth,
then I'll give it to you for free. It's yours.
Score. All right. Come on, GW. Don't let me down.
It's yours. But they have to actually re-release the War Mammoth. And I really hope so, but yeah.
We'll see.
So the Rogue Idol, is that going to be available to buy at the...
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think they might re-release the War Scroll and maybe put a certain keyword on there?
It's well, you mean like re-edit it?
Yeah. Like maybe Iron Jaws?
I wish. Right now it's triggering off greenskins.
Greenskins, yeah.
I don't know. Is the answer. I wish it was just Oruks. Like, I wish it was just super generic. And just let it trigger
off. It feels like the kind of thing that should be super generic. Like, why Why isn't it
Why are-
firing off of any of the orcs?
Why are savage orcs not benefiting from this? That's what I want to know.
Right. Yeah. No, that's totally fair. What I'll say is, sure, I could see a War Scroll update coming for it. I mean, obviously, as it is right now, he's gonna. How many points is he? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. The
He's
Rogue
over-
Idol.
Like
He's over
way too
400.
much. He's like
480?
440. Yeah, he's a lot.
480. Yeah,
He's
he's
a
a lot.
lot.
Yeah,
He's 480. Yes.
480.
So I mean, as it is, without a change, he's outside of ally reach, right?
Right.
That's the problem. I was trying to remember if he was over, as I've said, the new magic line,
Is
right?
he-
Like the new red line is, are you greater than 400 points or less than 400 points?
Yep. No,
That
you're
is
right.
the dividing line.
Yep.
And yeah, he's too much right now. Yes, I would be good to see him switch to just be works or as you said. Yes.
Yeah, Auric and drop to 400. Like tweak the scroll however you need. And I think that I think that it would be golden.
Yep. Absolutely. Sell some of that model. You know, slight aside, that dropship that was in that same release is also pretty sweet looking. Like, no, I know that's not at all related to what we're talking about, but that Custodes dropship was pretty stupidly awesome. Like, as a big giant airplane, not anything to do with anything, but it was cool stuff. I wonder if some of that that's going to be all available.
Don't make me salivate about Custodes.
Oh, did you?
Don't do it.
Speaking of which, on your Custodes, you need to get those painted, but you did see that you can now call and get your free rules PDF if you bought the Custodes pack. That box you bought. So that box you bought, the Talons of the Emperor or whatever. Now if you buy the box now, it comes with like a little booklet that is all the rules for 40K and 8th edition for every model in there and some stuff, some just general fluff and rules and stuff. And you can, if you bought it, if you already own it, you can call them and they'll send you the book for free.
Really?
Little booklet. Yep.
Hmm.
So there you go. You just have to be able to prove you bought it. So
Well, I have a box that's still sealed sitting right there. Does that count?
that's probably proof. Yeah, that probably counts. So there you go. Check that out. But I wonder, how we don't get many chances to get this stuff in the US. Like for the Forge World actually brings its product over here.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like Gen Con.
Yep.
Adepticon. They're usually at Gen Con, Adepticon, and Nova. They are at Nova as well.
Yep.
And that's, I think they then they're at LVO. So, I wonder how much, and mostly what they bring is usually 40K stuff. We don't generally get much of the fantasy stuff. Yeah. I hope they start bringing more AOS stuff over. I know there are things I would pick up if I didn't have to pay the exorbitant shipping, honestly.
Well, you could get the event, you can get the sheet and skip over the crazy shipping costs.
Yeah, the problem with that is then I don't get to hold it in my hand and walk out with it. Like, and I know that sounds stupid.
No, it's fair.
Thing.
Fair.
Like, I have to feel like I'm getting the thing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like every other thing in that building that is fighting for my money when I'm at a place like that, I give them money, they give me a thing.
Yeah, not a piece of paper.
Right.
No, that's a very legitimate point. For those that are interested in doing purchases of some of the Forge World stuff, but don't have like a very large order that they want to do from Forge World, I believe, I think Landmine offers a service where he will do big group buys so that you don't end up having to pay that extra shipping. So if you have like smaller things that you want to buy, he does large purchases from them, which gets like it avoids that like 12% markup or whatever.
Yeah,
for like that shipping cost. Yeah.
But yes, I think that is correct. Yes, so if you tweet at Landmine, if you want to put those orders in, because I know he has advertised for that before. Yes.
Yep. So that's an option. Or you can just wait till one of the 4 events here in the U.S. to pick that up.
Sure. Oh, somebody asked a question in the comments of will they have a Dread Saurian at Gen Con? They haven't in the past. I'll answer it that way.
No, no fantasy AOS stuff. And I think that I heard the Dread Saurian, it was actually pulled from the site. I don't know if that's true or not. So
I'll throw mini.
Or no, they don't have
Landmine's Twitter down there. By the way,
is that what it is? They don't have rules for it anymore.
I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head, but there you go.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'll throw Mini Stomp Landmine's Twitter down below. So if people do want to check it out, you can tweet at him. All right. What's next? What are next?
Blood Bowl Minotaur.
Yeah, man.
Vince, you want to
That
talk
Blood
about
Bowl
that?
Minotaur.
I know
Yeah,
you're
dude.
excited about
Like,
this.
I am excited about it. Like, I really like Minotaurs. Like, I don't know why. I just think they're cool minis. I liked the old Minotaurs when they were dumb, heavy metal things that you could kill a man with. And I liked the newer Minotaurs they made. I know a lot of people didn't really cotton to them too well, but I actually quite like them a bunch. But this new Minotaur is great. I think he's the best one I've seen. So that's this guy. He's the new Blood Bowl Minotaur. So there you go. There's that dude. Great looking Minotaur. Wonderful balance of like the size of his upper body versus his lower. Like the face on him is just perfect. And can we just take a moment? I want to know, I need to figure out which heavy metal team painter painted this model.
Yeah.
Because they nailed it. Like, this is gorgeous work. The texture work here, because all that fur is paint. Like, none of that is on the model.
It's a pretty unique color scheme, particularly for, at least in my mind, that model, that Minotaur.
Yeah.
That color scheme.
I really love this thing. From the little touches
like,
of
look
flame.
at the veins in the hand.
Yeah. Yeah. Just for everybody this here and here.
Or whatever that is, the creases.
Yeah, it's just creases. I knew what you meant. Yes. Like this, all this fur, all this fur texture is this is painted by hand. This isn't texture that's being followed. Like, this is just flat plastic. It's freaking wonderful. This is one of the most gorgeous models I've seen painted come out of their studio in a while. And that's not in any way an insult. I just mean, I think this is stunning.
There's been a course going around of people being a little disappointed in the Forge World Blood Bowl models. At least that's my impression, and I've certainly felt that. But this one, yeah, they knocked this one out of the park. Yeah,
agreed. Like, this is an A+. I really, this reminds me of, I think it was, if I get it wrong, I'm going to feel really bad, but I think Matt DiPietro did a bust of a lion last year that placed really, really well in several competitions he competed in with it. And it was, the fur was very reminiscent of this like gold hued fur, you know, and it's just gorgeous. So yeah, great work. I love this dude. He's sweet. Cool dude to make some new Minotaur packs out of. Like, if you know, some you get 3 of these dudes, you could probably some slight conversions and they're ready to go. There's nothing eminently football about this guy, right? Like, he could just as easily be a Minotaur in AOS.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Those hands are just asking for axes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Piece of cake. All right.
Okay. GW folks have heard your cries. They heard you wanted more skulls, and they're here. You can buy.
You joke. I'm buying that skull pack like immediately. I'm serious. Like, I legitimately used up my skull store. Okay, like I had a giant thing of bits of skulls, and I've just been piecing them out over time on bases, and I've run out. I have no more, so I'm doing it. You pull that trigger.
And they'll have like demon. Well, they're like 300 and some skulls. They said per pack. That's a lot of skulls.
They including have like a big giant one in there. Now, I didn't know how big
and they have like
is.
demon skulls. Like, they have other skulls. Yeah.
Yes, it's not just human skulls. I need to know how big that big skull is. For a project. There's a project I'm working on, and I need a really big skull. Like, if that's not big enough, I'm gonna need to figure out where you can buy like animal skulls from. It's gotta because I need something the size of like a squirrel's head. Which there's got to be like taxidermists or something that sell that.
Oh,
I need something of that size.
I'll bet you could like just Google that right now.
Well, probably, yeah, I probably could. I might get. That's going to lead to weird results in my search history, but so I'm going to end up on some kind of lists. But yes, I know you can't get them. Sure, yeah, absolutely. But yes, I have a project that's going to need a very big skull. So
also, grass for those of you that want grasses and vines.
Little vines you can wrap around stuff. That's cool. The skull pack is where it's at.
Yeah, it'll be neat. It'll be interesting. Oh yeah. So, was this a community article about the Battle Line F fence?
No, it was just it was mentioned that it came up in like a rumor discussion.
Okay,
The battle line thing.
Yeah, so with the new General's Handbook coming out, we'll talk. We might talk a little bit more about this, but we knew that there are going to be a bunch of what I call conditional battle line statuses, like conditional statuses. And what we've now found out apparently is that there are additional battle line will include additional generals potentially as well. Right. So if you are mono allegiance, this model can serve as your general. And why that is significant is that if you have a hero requirement on generals, you could have factions without heroes be able to have a general like monster. So like you could have a giant serve as your general, even though he's not a. So you could have an all giant faction potentially with something like that.
Yeah, we didn't have that particular thing spoiled or anything.
No, we don't know that it's giant.
Just to be clear, we're totally making that piece up. There's also going to be more of regular troops that go battle line if a particular model is nominated as your general, right?
Okay.
So much in the way that like flesh hounds right now become battle line if Karanak is your general. There will be a lot more of that. So like certain generals will bring in certain troops to be battle line.
That's been
okay. Sorry. So let me start over. That second one is correct. The first one, which is general if allegiance, I don't know that that's confirmed. I think that could still be speculation.
Oh, okay.
So let me be very clear about that.
Yes, I think that part is still speculation.
I think that's speculation. But what is confirmed is that there will be more of the, like, if such and such is general, this unit goes battle line. There'll be a lot more of those, like the Vanguard stuff for Stormcast and whatever.
Sure. Yeah, that your little bird riders will become battle line if you have a big bird rider as your general. Yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So big that's bird. Happening. That'll be fun. Other things, open war cards. There's a community article. Check it out. Those awesome cards that were coming from 40K are coming. Something similar is coming to AOS. Apparently, they do listen to feedback because that was a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm very excited for this because I'll tell you exactly why I'm excited for this. One of the things they point out in the article on it is like if you want to have a sort of more varied game with some interesting objectives and things that are moving and varied, but you're lazy and you don't want to do a lot of work beforehand, you can just grip and rip some cards and boom, you've designed a sort of custom scenario. Perfect. I like that stuff and I'm lazy. How wonderful. So this is definitely a product targeted at me. So I'm excited for that.
You did suggest something like that in our meeting back in March. That ended up being on.
I did,
so not surprising. And I'm glad that whether that spurned this idea or not, I'm glad that they're putting out a product like this because it's something that's needed. It's something that's wanted. The fact that like the scenarios that we designed for NashCon were so popular, something like this, the secondary objective, something like this can function in that way as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting they have like objectives and twists and stuff like that, right? So it can suddenly change the entire game, right?
I did want to talk with you guys about schemes at Slobberknocker and make sure we go over that. Just
absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Last couple, we still have more stories. Okay. 40K, the GT pack is coming for those interested in 40K, and the points and all that stuff, as well that just today they announced the General's Handbook for 40K, which is called what?
Chapter Approved.
Chapter Approved is dropping. The 2017 version is dropping this Christmas and obviously like everybody was like, all of the normal bitching that you would anticipate is there. Like, we just bought this edition. Why are we having more rules added? And blah, 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 blah. Which is hilarious because they just don't know. They just don't understand clearly is the answer. Because this is a great edition.
Yeah, they'd already told everybody that this is going to be coming out later in the year, essentially winter.
Yes.
They told us that a long while ago.
Yeah.
Well, and excitingly, they're going to actually demo games of it using a bunch of the stuff out of it at Nova Open here at the end of the month. So, yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
They made me change my travel plans for Nova so that way I could be there early because they're doing another like preview show, but it's like the Wednesday before Nova. So now I have to figure out how I'm getting to Nova on Wednesday night.
Yep.
So There you go.
It's interesting. I think that it's all upsides. You know, for those that have experienced the General's Handbook, like it's a great perk. It's a great boon. I love that they're doing it, and it baffles me that like the 40K people just don't like those that are the grognards that are complaining about something like this. They don't see the actual advantage of it, which I think is numerous.
So real quickly on the 40K GT pack and scoring system,
Yeah,
I wanted to run through it and get your guys' initial take on it. So there's a max of 30 points available for gaming, max of 10 for sports, and a max of 10 for army presentation / painting. The gaming scores are 6 for a win, 2 for a draw, and 0 for a loss. And then they have tiebreakers that are the victory conditions like Slay the Warlord, Linebreaker, etc. So those are the tiebreakers if needed. Okay, so one wrinkle that they've added is for favorite opponent / favorite game. They call it favorite game. And favorite army / favorite painted army. You vote for the top 2 for each.
Yep.
Okay, so let's say, so that's a total of, I believe, 50 potential points, so 30, 10, 10. And then they have a painting competition, Hero of Legend, Company of Legend, Icon of Legend. Yeah, so what do you guys think about that basic scoring system?
I think it is
because the sports is the favorite 2 as well, right? So like on sports, you choose your favorite 2 games out of your 5.
Yep.
My answer is I think it is a perfectly fine scoring system. By that, what I mean is there are lots of places in the world you can get a perfectly fine bowl of pasta. And it's nothing wrong with that pasta. It is a filling pasta. You eat it. It has a pretty decent red or white sauce on it. You think to yourself, I'm glad I had that bowl of pasta. I feel rather full now. It was tasty enough. I think it is a decent bowl of pasta.
Okay. And so more specifically, do you think that this... So reading between the lines, I mean, it seems pretty obvious that, okay, they put this forward to represent clearly their expression of what they want the hobby to be in the context of these tournaments, and that this is their expression of what they would consider meaningful weighting for the 3 pillars, around those 3 pillars. So do you guys...
Because it's uneven, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that obviously gaming is weighted more, and yet, I mean, looking at this, my initial sense is that certainly sports and army presentation is going to make a considerable difference to your final score. Let's say you win 4, lose 1, 3 favorite game votes, 2 favorite army. I think that's like 29 points you would get right there. 24 for game. Yeah, I think 29 right there. So yeah, I guess that's not an enormous weighting on those, but
what I would say is this. It's weighted in such a way that every single time painting and sports are going to determine the outcome of the tournament. And what I mean is that you almost always have multiple people with perfect games. Okay, so literally every single tournament would come down to who has better painted, like more favorite painted collections, and who is a better opponent. And are we okay with that?
This is obviously the ongoing topic that, I mean, we could talk for 3 hours on this. I know. I did want to just kind of ping you guys on where you are with this, because it just happened a couple of days ago on Twitter. There was a lengthy thread with a lot of folks in the community participating around basically this topic. What do we want the weighting to be for the flagship quote unquote tournaments? Tournaments. Where you're coming and you're going to be facing a lot of strong builds, like Slobberknocker or NashCon or whatever. But how much weighting on sports and armor presentation / painting? I was just kind of curious to check with you guys where you are right now.
No, I think it's interesting. I don't have a problem with it. Like, that's what I would say.
So I have a lot.
Good.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have a lot of opinions about this.
Okay.
Which are too detailed to go into here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like a topic of the week.
But you'd have to go through 5 or 6 different topics of the week to get to this, because there's so much to unpack here, and I have done them all previously, including everything from general soft scores to scoring in tournaments to sports votes to all that stuff. at a high level, tournaments are about battle. That's what
Mhm.
they're for.
Yep.
You showed up to fight. You played 5 games. If you wanted a painting competition, those are around the country. I participate in a lot of them. They're fun. You should do them. That's not what tournaments are for. It is a critical part of this hobby. I think it should have weight and merit, but exactly how it contributes is whatever. My personal feeling is the classic adherence to a concept like best overall is unnecessary. I would love to see the concept of best overall go away. And instead, because I feel like it is a combination of too many things that don't belong together. You're putting together like a bag of Doritos and some broken glass and a can of oil, and you're trying to build a delicious meal. Like, it's 3 different things that they don't have a point going together. The like best sports is there to ostensibly be punitive. But by that, what I mean is, even though it's a positive number of points, yeah, it's there to regulate the community. And like in general, most people get max sports points as long as you're not that guy.
But what would happen is in this type of format, most people wouldn't get max sports points.
I don't know that that's the case, but okay. I mean, maybe not. And painting is there. That's something that should be highly valued. I believe in it. Obviously, as someone who for miniature painting is the chief reason I'm interested in this hobby. But to me, this is the point of this.
By the way, I misspoke. It's max of 10 in combination sports and armored presentation. So it's a max of 40 overall in their system.
Okay.
Yeah. So 30 is battle.
Yeah. So you could get up to 5 for sports and up to 5 for armored presentation. 30 is battle. Yeah. Sorry about that.
But what that tells me is that, I mean, statistically, it's almost always going to get determined by sports and a combination of sports and painting, right?
Maybe not. I don't know. Depends on the game and stuff like that. I'm not sure that's necessarily the case, but perhaps. 5 perfect games. Yeah, probably. There's probably a couple people that do, especially in a 40K tournament, given their size. So you're probably right. But my feeling is this does what it needs to do. It sets a baseline. Every TO in the world should be entitled to be a king, and gets the idea of
how they want to run their event.
Like, and good. But it's fine. This is good. It doesn't need to be perfect. This should be fairly straightforward in its application and something that most people can pick up and use with little controversy, which is what this basically seems to be. You can push the nuance of it in various directions how you want, right? You know, there's lots of ways to do that, where you can screw around with the nature of how you weight things, how you weight painting, how you judge painting, how you judge sports. Do you get points for getting, your favorite game, for being the person's favorite looking army, for whatever. There's tons of different ways to do it, and TOs should always be encouraged to do whatever the heck they want with that. And the market will respond. If you put together a crappy pack, people won't come, and you won't do that anymore.
I guess that's where the primary underlying question is, whether you guys thought that essentially best overall, a la 3 pillars incorporated together to arrive at a best overall, if you were king, would you use that as your preference for flagship events?
No, I would get rid of best overall.
Tom?
If I was running it, I would be open to, I would or wouldn't do it. I would recognize that whenever those structures are set up, I'm biased towards them. Or because my painting is generally good enough that it's striking and eye-catching and stuff like that. And so I'm going to net points there, like free points from that. And so but for people that have the carbon copy net list of like Thunder Tusk, Goblins, whatever, like they're not going to get originality. Like they're not going to get those painting points oftentimes, like for like favorite lists and stuff like that, because it's just the same as all the other lists that are identical to that. And so like that type of structure benefits me at the same time. So like I'm biased towards it, and I recognize that. At the same time, also my list isn't fun to play. And so, like, I would have to throw out those 5 favorite games every time. Like that outright docks me coming into that event.
I thought it was interesting, the phrase favorite game, emphasis
Yes.
on game as opposed to opponent.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that throws out, and that'll throw out, like, so on the flip side, that setup is like I throw out 5 points at the beginning of every tournament because people don't want to play my list.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. We literally could do the whole show on it.
I just wanted to close it out by mentioning, because I mean, maybe we'll get into this a little bit later. I wanted to bring it up because I had a conversation with Elder Gedge after Slobberknocker, and we were talking about, obviously I have a commissioned army. And every time I show up at a tournament, the first thing I do is I make sure the TO knows that I have a commissioned army, and this army should in no way be up for best painted.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't address everything. I've still been very uncomfortable with every tournament that I go to, knowing that I have the potential, at least with most of the scoring systems that I'm seeing, of getting a high score on painting, even though I did not paint my army. That makes me uncomfortable, and I don't personally agree with that. I think that based on that conversation, I'm just sort of thinking about this. My best sense is that I would be perfectly fine and would prefer to have a soft cap on the max painting score that I could get because I have a commissioned army. And the same might apply to someone who borrowed an army. I mean, there's a lot of details in there that we can talk about as well, but maybe we can talk about it.
That's a much larger conversation. It's a fascinating one, and I think that like community standards. Like, imagine a situation where there might be community standards, maybe a packet that could float around that could give suggestions to TOs.
Like, I don't want to be destroyed, and where I can't have any shot at getting, even if we're going to have best overall, like, it would suck if I'm getting 0 on painting. But I think there should be maybe, anyway, we can talk about that more later.
Yeah, that's a much larger, maybe we'll have to do a podcast on that, Tyler.
There you go.
Sure. My summation of it would be this. There is no platonic form here.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not the point. The point is to set up a scoring system that incentivizes the type of play and the type of tournament you are trying to create, and to know how all point systems are incentive systems. It's economics. Know what you're creating. There's lots of different approaches you can take, which will yield lots of different types of tournaments, all of which could be equally and valuably fun to different psychographic profiles. Done. There you go. Summary complete.
So are we in the phase of talking about events?
No.
We're still in the news.
We still have the news. I'm just going to mention these last 2 stories. This week, Rob turned in his letter of resignation at Warhammer TV. For those of you that have not caught that news bit, so we wish Rob well, and in all of his future endeavors. We'll be sad to see him go as the face of Warhammer TV.
All right, what we're going to do now is we are going to have 10 seconds of silence for Rob and his leaving. We salute you, sir. We are all going to salute Rob for 10 seconds of silence. Do not say a word. Here we go. And there you go. All right. Rob, seriously, he's a great guy, an absolutely amazing dude. And, you know, he has said he's still going to be around Warhammer and all of that. He still loves the game, and he's just an absolutely fun person. He's been a wonderful ambassador to the community, somebody who's done so much to draw people into the hobby, to put a positive face on a company that many had mixed feelings on before he was there. His enthusiasm was infectious, and I think he is going to be a difficult guy to replace. That is the reality of it. But Rob, you're an absolute, you're a legend, my friend. And it was a pleasure having you serve in that role as long as you did.
Yeah, the turnaround of GW for many of us was tied tightly with Rob coming in. I mean, I remember seeing him on that video, little sneak peek video of the Sylvaneth Battle Tome of him filmed on camera. And I think that was the first little video that were done with him. And yeah, it was just a complete phase shift. Like, okay, we're in a new reality now. And they took it to so many so many a number of levels that I never would have imagined. I mean, we could spend an hour just talking about all the different videos that were done and everything that was done with Warhammer Live, where they started to where they are now. It's incredible, and he is unequivocally at the heart of that. So yeah, hopefully we're gonna still see him around, and yeah, move on to bigger and better things for him.
I have no doubt he'll still be lighting up our Facebook feeds and everything with pictures of late night disco raves. So I'm not worried. Absolutely.
I am super excited about his return to Twitter.
And maybe,
I'm assuming that's going to happen.
Maybe a certain podcast.
That, or maybe a YouTube show. Sometime in September. Okay. Anyways, so story hit the news this week, or this is our last one. I'm going to briefly mention it. We're not going to discuss it. A story hit the news this week about a lawsuit against GW. The reality is that we're not going to talk about it on the show. We're not attorneys. If you happen to be an attorney and you have you want to speak intelligibly about it, I'm sure you could file an amicus brief with the court.
Absolutely.
But our comments aren't that, and so we're not real interested.
There you go.
Anything else to say about it?
Nope. Cool.
Form your own judgment.
There you go. Moving on. All right. So yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about some pick of the week. So Tom, you had a video. Go ahead, sir.
Well, we had. Do we want to talk about events? Because there were a couple of events.
Oh yeah, go talk about the events. Yeah, man.
Tyler, do you want to announce yours?
Yeah, real quickly. So Jeff and Lucan, I know Jeff is the principal with Siege World, Age of Sigmar one-dayer at Siege World, August 20. So the event itself is August 26th and 27th, all kinds of different gaming systems, St. Louis, Missouri. And the Age of Sigmar one-dayer, 3 games, is on August 27th. So Jeff, fantastic guy, I met him at Battleshock Bash and ran by Lucius Meyer at the Battleshock podcast. So yeah, sure, it's going to be a great event. 2,000 points, standard match play, 3 games. I think it's like $20. Yeah, so if you're in the Midwest or anywhere close, definitely come out for that. August 27th, gateway-gamers.com is the website to register.
Nice. Another one that was announced, I think just today, in fact. Let me say this. It wasn't announced just today, but it was some of the more details just dropped. And it's the South London Legion. It is the Blood Tithe AOS International Team Tournament. Nico was helpful and tagged Vince and I on this with a personal encouragement / invitation. And it's going to be a big AOS tournament. It'll be teams of 4. So they'll be able to have space for basically 80 players, 20 teams. It'll be a 5-game. Each team is 2,000 points. Each player is 2,000 points. And basically, like, it's a Swiss, is like Swiss round robin, or I don't know what it's called. Anyway, so where like each of them are playing their own games and contributing independently or whatever. And 50% of the spaces for this event, 10 of the teams, 40 people, that block is being reserved for international teams.
Oh, wow.
And then they will slowly, starting in October, start opening up the block to domestic teams. Because they're aiming at this, they're wanting to have as strong of an international presence as possible.
Cool. Nice.
All right, Tom, book the flight now. Let's go. We'll head. See what we can do.
Hey, if you want to burn some of those points where you can fly to the moon and back for my ticket, we could.
Oh, I'll buy my ticket with my miles. I don't know. You're on your own there, homeboy. I can go to England for free anytime I want. It's going to be a tougher call. Sorry.
Hey, I'm willing to roll some dice with you. Hey, we 4-person teams. We could roll up with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Bring all 4 factions of chaos.
That's a good idea. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Rolling Bad Rumble, August 19th and 20th, Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm sure you guys have mentioned it before. Rolling Bad crew are some of the best guys in the community. So if you have any way to get out to Albuquerque, New Mexico, August 19th to the 20th, it's only $30. You're going to guarantee to have an amazing time with those guys.
Very nice. Absolutely.
That's like 2 weeks away.
It is, yeah.
It is very close, but that's all right. If you're already out there, there's a good, West Coast group of people out there. So
yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, now pick of the week. Doom and Darkness. Oh, sorry. Tyler, you go. Are you going first or am I?
No, Tyler's gonna go last because he's got.
Okay.
We're gonna cover a whole bunch of stuff with him. So
Yeah.
So Doom and Darkness released a video where he basically went through the 5 stages of grief
around clan rats.
Around clan rats. So talking through the introduction of the GHB2, and like he's in, he's in. Was it Thailand?
He's in Thailand. Yeah, he's on vacation.
He's on vacation, so he's like poolside in Thailand, like hanging out on the beach, just talking to the camera. And he's like,
I think I know what this is. This was number 1 on my list. I haven't watched the video. But this is number 1 on my list. Clan rats, minimum unit size, right?
Minimum unit size of 20. Yep. This rocked his world to the very core of his being. And so he starts. It's the 5 stages of grief. You know, he starts with there's denial, and maybe we can run some other things. And he talks it through. There's anger, and I have to buy more or paint more. Or I don't want to run them like that. I can't build the lists I want. There's sadness at all the lists he can't run. He can't use his Hell Pit Abomination, right? There's bargaining of like what can he trade to get the right list still, and then finally after a massage and several drinks, he's down on the beach and there's acceptance, and he's like, you know what, maybe it doesn't matter, it'll be fine. It's the most wonderful. You ever
like over the course of the whole conversation.
Yeah, it's a wonderful. It's like a 40-minute video,
and he cuts like in these different places where he picks back up on the video. Yeah. It is. Like, it's genius, and it's hilarious to watch. I want to encourage all of you to check it out.
Oh, brilliant. All right. I'll have to watch that tonight.
Yes, it's highly worth it. You will be super jelly of his of the vistas he is taking in. They are rather gorgeous. So Doom, wish you all the best. Hope you enjoy your vacation, buddy, and thank you for going all the way to make content even on his family vacation. So there you go. It's pretty fantastic. So I'll do my pick next because Tyler, I know yours is going to kind of bleed over between pick of the week and hobby time, I suspect.
Yeah.
So I want to direct everybody to a newer channel that's putting out some great stuff, and that's Charlie Chapman. Charlie's doing some really fun stuff on his channel. He did a really great video on Slaanesh. But the video I want to direct everybody to was on some theory hammering he's doing around Korn and the GHB 2017.
Is this the guy who speculated about what the aesthetics might be of the new Slaanesh?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I love that video. Okay, cool.
Exactly. Yes, that's him. So I by the way, I highly recommend. In fact, I'll just link both videos because who cares? They're both awesome. So there you go. I'll make a note to myself to put the other one in there too. Charlie's been doing some great stuff. He's obviously a newer content producer, but that's exactly the time we should all be watching his videos, leaving him a comment, throw him a thumbs up, encourage him. We need more people producing more great AOS content. And he's doing really nice work for like literally just jumping into this quite recently. He's only a few videos in, but he reached out to me, hit me with the link. I watched it. I really liked it. So there you go. Check it out. Links will be down below in the description once the show is posted. So now, Tyler, you were at Slobberknocker, buddy. You want to talk? Well, this will be kind of a segue between your pick of the week and hobby time. I'll bring up the photos and then I'll share.
Yeah, I'll get the non-Slobberknocker ones out of the way real quickly. Just wanted to give a couple shout outs. So Chris Welfare on his Mortally Wounded podcast, Chris participated in Eggs, Element Games Grand Slam, 2 weekends ago now? Something like that. So he just did a mini episode on the list that he brought, Tempest Lords, and I listened to that in my grief on the long drive back home after having my ass absolutely kicked. I had the biggest ass kicking in Age of Sigmar that I ever had by a Tempest Lords list. It was horrifying. So he did a breakdown of why Tempest Lords are going to be near a tournament near you soon. So yeah, it was a really good mini episode, maybe 20 minutes. So definitely check that out if you want to find out what a lot of people are probably going to be running going forward with Stormcast. We're certainly going to see more of. And then Brendan Melnick, a great guy. So I think many of us know him. He's part of the Milwaukee, Wisconsin Age of Sigmar group with Dave and a bunch of others. So Brendan was at Battleshock Bash and Midwest Meltdown. He got best overall at Battleshock Bash and best death at Midwest Meltdown. So he's been running Nagash and Friends. So he was on the
Are you talking Tempest Lords?
Tempest Lords. Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Yep. Which we can go into, a little bit later. So Brendan's been running Nagash Friends, and he was on the new Cubic Shenanigans podcast talking about death and Midwest Meltdown. Yeah, it was just a great episode. So it was the second episode. Wanted to give that a shout out. And then finally, there were a lot of amazing photos of Call to Arms, the event that James McPherson, I think a number of us know him. He's on Twitter. He works at Weta Digital, famous for The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and other things. So yeah, he organized this pretty incredible event in Wellington, New Zealand. Just a ton of photos on Call to Arms on TGI.community. So yeah, we'll have the link to that. He spent over 1,000 hours organizing that event.
Wow.
Good Lord. By the way, I want to answer a question in the comments very quickly here to interrupt. But Doom said if he hosted an international tournament at the resort in Thailand with massages and cocktails, would we come? Now that's an event that could motivate me to get out there. Let me just say that. So there you go.
I would. I could convince my wife. Be like, "Hey, sweetheart."
Sure. We'll go on vacation. Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's a thing.
I'm bringing minis. You can go get a massage.
Mm-hmm. The point is, yes, we could trick the spouse into going to that one. So there you go. All right. Please continue, Tyler. Sorry.
All right. Yeah. So you want to pull up some photos?
Let's do that. Where would you like to begin? You want to begin at the very beginning?
Maybe we'll just real quickly go through Kit's photos. Yeah. So Kit Reich. If anybody doesn't know him, Vince mentioned him early. So Kit and John are brothers. They're just phenomenal guys. They're on Twitter. They've been a part of the Age of Sigmar community for a while now. John's in California. Kit's in Texas. Kit's training, I think, to be a physician assistant right now. So he's about to start his residency. Yeah, he was at Slobberknocker. And Vince, I loved your army at NashCon, but man, Kit's army has got to be the most gorgeous, just insanely beautiful Warhammer army I've ever seen in my life. And I was, for some reason, I managed to get 0 photos of the army. So the photos that you're actually going to pull up here are, okay, so you got the photo of, I can start there. We can come back to Kit's.
I can go to Kit's army if you want. That's fine.
Yeah, we can do that real quick. But okay. I just wanted to show a few photos.
We'll jump ahead.
Yeah.
This is where you want to start?
Yeah, I just wanted to show a few photos for folks so that they can then go to his Twitter and they can see the rest of the army. He's got well over 2,000 points now. And I mean, Vince, you could talk more about the level of painting and what it took to achieve this. But this guy has an extremely unique, kind of footprint, fingerprint to his painting style, at least to my eyeballs.
Very like anime-esque, high contrast.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous work. So yeah, I just wanted to pull.
I love it. It's beyond beauty. He's been working on this for so long.
Yeah.
He's under Bleep Loop. He's a member of our community. I'll throw his Twitter down there in the description, so that everybody can go follow him. And it's, he's been putting this together. He takes a lot of time and care into everything. Exactly as you said, he uses it is a 2D art style of like ultra high contrast brought into the 3D realm.
Yep.
So it's not a realistic style. And I say, sucks to your realistic style. Who cares? This is about art, and he creates truly beautiful, magnificent, unique figures.
Yeah.
These guys are just gorgeous. The definition that he gets out of, because almost every single blend he does goes from near black to near white. That's why there's so much contrast, right? So like if you look at every muscle grouping, you notice that it goes from like very near black to very near white at the highlight, every individual little muscle group. This being, to me, the crowning achievement, his Manfred, repositioned up on the rock. I know this took him a long time. But if you go back and watch the PMP review where he submitted it in this month, I spend a long time just absolutely salivating over this figure. Probably more inappropriate words would be correct, but it's gorgeous. There are a million little touches to this that are genius. Every bit of this is lavished with attention and detail. It is one of the most gorgeous army miniatures I have ever seen in my life. So
yeah.
And somehow he didn't win Best Painted.
Well, because of I think it was the lack of display boards. I think display board was part of the scoring. So I think that was the issue. And yeah, to be fair, I mean, James Tapia, he won it part of the Rolling Bag crew. James is a really, really gifted painter, and his Zines army, I have a few photos of those. They were fantastic as well. I think James would fully admit that, yeah, that was Kit's award. So I think he said as much to Kit shortly after. But yeah, and Kit, I mean, it's hard to imagine a nicer guy as well. He's an awesome dude all around.
Yeah, you know, look, we're not going to get into my feelings on that sort of thing. Display boards and checklists, like my blood is getting up over here, so I'm just going to shut my mouth and say this is a gorgeous army, and it is simply. And you mentioned like my army or whatever. Okay. Yeah. If I was the judge and was made king and was deciding between my army and this army for what should be best painted, okay? Like if I'm the judge of the tournament and somehow my own army, I can award myself the trophy, okay?
Yeah.
I would give it to him without a moment's hesitation or reservation. Yeah. It's not even close. It's not even close. Okay.
So, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, everybody definitely, if you're not following him on Twitter, definitely do it. I mean, he has a Mortis engine, a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, another piece of terrain that's amazing. It's just, yeah, it's well over 2,000 points now, and it's mind-boggling how beautiful it is. So yeah, maybe just real quickly run through some of those Slobberknocker photos.
Yeah, let's go up to the top. Sorry, okay, so let's start here.
Yeah. So if anybody doesn't know, which probably very few wouldn't, this is the one and only, the man, the legend, Bill Costello from Clearly the Rolling Bad podcast. So this was his very first game, about 9 o'clock. He already had his first beer, about chug there. And yeah, rocking a Beast Claw Raiders army because sadly his wife accidentally destroyed his entire death collection a few days before the event. So
how do you accidentally destroy an army?
She tipped over the entire case. As I understand it. So I have to ask Bill. It was something like that. Yeah, he had it, I think, in a display case, and it got knocked over. I don't know how exactly she did it, but yeah.
That's cool. I mean, I'm not sure I would be attending the tournament because I would be busy filing divorce paperwork, but that's fine.
Yeah. Oh, she felt so bad. And I mean, he said it was a complete accident, but anyway. Yeah. So I thought this photo perfectly encapsulates why almost everybody hates Sylvaneth.
Which is what you were playing, for those who don't know, because not everybody might have played a tournament with you, but you have a quite beautifully painted Sylvaneth army here.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah. There's the filth doing what it does. Got some wildwoods there up in front. Sure. You got some sides. What?
I said, sure, absolutely. Just making forests and then putting trees in the forests. Yeah, that's kind of the thing.
Just, yeah, screening off some sides, having Durthu there as a nice little weak support unit. Yeah, don't mind him. You know, chaffing up your ancient teleporter. Yeah, I did that. Like,
all of it looks real familiar.
Yep.
Did Durthu perform better for you this weekend?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
He's traditionally been a letdown for you. I know. It's a shame.
Yep. But to be fair, I didn't exactly use them that well. So yeah, this was James' army. Beautiful change host, 50 brimstones, 3 units of 10 pink cores, which are clearly painted in a way that you could tell that they're pink cores, yeah?
Absolutely. Well, as we all know from our color theory, green and purple, when you put them together, make pink. Everybody knows that.
And you know, a reasonable 12 Skyfires.
Very, very, very restrained. Extremely. Very restrained. 2 shamans, is that right?
2 shamans, full reality on one, treacherous bond on the other.
Yep.
Yeah, just
you know what that is? That looks like lunch to me.
Yep.
Sure.
So yeah, I love James's army.
Nice.
Got a couple more photos of it there with his Lord of Change. Is really beautiful. And Skyfires, we can quickly skip over those. We don't need to see that crap. Lord of Change, yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's phenomenal. He did.
I like it. I like the turquoise wings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the ethereal edge to the wings.
Absolutely. What's next?
Chaos marching into the woods here. What's
guys.
going on here?
So yeah, a blue corn bloodbath.
I know.
Like, got to get at least one photo of this. Again, couldn't imagine a nicer guy. Tim O'Brien, shout out to him. Great dude. Played him in the 3rd game. And yeah, his army was amazing looking. Yeah, it had that blue color scheme. And I just thought his corn lord on Juggy looked incredible. He had reposted a little bit.
Very nice.
I don't like
I noticed
the
that the
red.
woods are encroaching on the chaos here is what it looks like to me.
Like if he had went blue skin with the black and gold.
Oh yeah.
I think it might, and like silver maybe where the red is, it might have popped a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Am I wrong on that color theory, Vince?
Well, red and blue are tough colors to work together here, and he did use a pinky red, but
yeah,
which is going to be tough. You generally want to use a more orange red with blue because light blue is going to contrast well against orange red. If you think about classic Bretonian color schemes, which were generally red and blue, it was always an orange red, right? Because you're trying to build out the orange because orange is the complementary to blue. So
I do like the blue skin though. I'll just say that, like a frozen wasteland. Like I'm a fan. It looks sharp.
Yeah, it looked amazing in person. What else we got?
Somebody's infiltrating.
Yeah. So,
was this the first time that you had played them?
The first time I played the Changeling, and like a well-prepared competitive tournament player.
Yeah.
I didn't manage to look at the Changeling's War Scroll.
Yeah.
So I was like, Kyle, I'm going to give you first turn because I've never played against the Changeling. I'm just curious to see what it does.
You gave him first turn.
I gave him first turn. So this is a thing that I do at tournaments, which I think I mentioned to you guys. Like, I still haven't really decided how I'm going to, like, I don't play very consistently. I don't know how the hell I'm doing well at these tournaments because I do a lot of stupid things. And this was one of them, it turned out. And if it were, so yeah, if anybody doesn't know, the Changeling can take control of a one weapon profile of one model. So he got into combat against Durthu, which I intelligently did not manage to screen off there. And so Durthu with his Guardian Sword doing 6 damage each. I had 2 wound rolls that I had to make on a, thankfully I had Oaken Armor, so it was on a 4-up save. And I got one of those 50-50 rolls to save my ass and to save that game. It was 3 places of power. If I had lost him, that game was probably over right there. So yeah.
That's amazing. He almost made Durthu literally axe himself. So I assume he put him down 6 wounds on basically and like right away. Just hack.
Yep.
You dropped one of them. Nice.
Yeah, he had done somehow did a mortal wound to him. I think that's why that was there. Yeah.
Sure.
So maybe he did a Bolt of Zinch. I think that's what yeah, I think he did a Bolt of Zinch and he rolled a 1 on that. So yeah, doubly got lucky. I should not have won that game. Yeah. that's
well,
good.
it's a dice game. It's a dice game. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
That is an absolutely hilarious picture. I love everything about this picture. I love how all the treemen are looking forward, just like, yep. Everything's fine here.
We're good.
Yeah, nothing unusual. Just another branch wraith behind us. Nothing strange about that guy.
As our friend Reverend Dangles asked in the chat, Tyler, do you know what the Changeling does now?
I do. Yes. I do.
We'll see. Life is all about learning. That's right. So there you go. Oh, that's a great picture. That's fantastic. All right. So talk to me about this epic showdown here between the mega boss on Maw Crusher and a branch witch.
I'll give you one guess. What was there before that photo was taken? Sitting
Was
pretty.
to dry it, or was it your Kurnoth?
No.
Was Durthu, I assume.
It was Durthu.
Yeah. Who had failed yet again here and paid for it with his life.
Exactly. Yep. So once again, playing brilliantly, not screening him off. He's just hanging out. Got double turned by a Maw Crusher on a big old mini pizza plate. No problem. He's not gonna, he can't land anywhere. He's not that powerful. So yeah, 8 mortal wounds on the impact rolls, or on the impact wounds, whatever the hell it's called. What is that called? Massive bulk?
Yeah, his big massive bulk. Yeah.
So yeah, boys and girls, read your war scrolls.
Are we going to talk about how you placed at this event soon?
We are.
It's coming up. Don't worry. We'll get there.
A little bit of foreshadowing.
Okay. Yeah.
Did any wounds get dealt to this guy yet, or did he ace Durthu without a scratch?
He aced Durthu without a scratch. Took him out.
Okay.
One blow. Oh,
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I
another
assume
example. I mean, I'll get into this in my game. Like, it's getting ridiculous the number of just ignorant moves that I've been making in my games that turn out to be golden and exactly what I intended to win me the game.
I assume what happens here after he aces Durthu is this branch witch piles into him and somehow miraculously kills him.
That'd be quite a story, but he actually, I think the Maw Crusher was on full health at that point.
Gotcha.
So that's a little improbable.
It seems highly unlikely.
Yeah.
All hits, all wounds, somehow making 7 extra attacks. Yes, and then it's fine. No problem.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, he did put himself at least slightly into some wood. So, I mean, there's always, awakening
Shake the tree.
The
Time to shake the tree.
There we go.
Yeah,
Yep.
There, he did walk right into the deep dark woods to do that attack.
Oh,
all right, let's talk about some Stormcast.
It's the last one. Yeah, this was Andrew Stanifords. I just love the display here. He had everybody sign his Stormcast Eternals limited edition book. If anybody doesn't know, Andrew won Las Vegas Open. He is arguably one of the best Age of Sigmar players that I played, and he was the one who gave me a good ass kicking. To be fair,
Tempest Lords.
He brought the Tempest Lords, which we should probably run through real quickly if anybody doesn't know. We don't have to do it right now, but maybe when we get in the game.
When we get to the meta, we'll talk about it.
Go to the Stormcast show that we did 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And I spent how long on Tempest Lords as the #1 pick?
Oh, I don't remember that. Okay.
Yeah, as the most powerful thing in the book and what people will likely see in the coming months.
Yep.
Go and we probably did a 15-minute segment on Tempest Lords there.
Yep.
And walked through everything that it did and why I thought that it was the new golden boy.
If you know how to play AOS, like often I don't, apparently, despite a performance recently at tournaments, you're golden. It is absolutely disgusting. Yeah.
Yep.
And then our happy picture.
Yeah, so this was someone he took. Kit wanted to get a photo here, so yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Nice.
Love the Rolling Bad crew, and like I said, yeah, Scott Reed, part of that. He's the guy who's been organizing pretty much all of the Southern California Age of Sigmar events, a ton of events. Scott Reed, again, another amazing guy in our community, and he's on the 9th Realm podcast, so definitely check that out. And yeah, so that's Jules there, Julian, James's son. He was a pretty darn good Warhammer player, regardless of how old he looks or doesn't look there.
Very nice. Yeah, Scott is an awesome dude. He was up in Connecticut not too long ago this week. I saw him tweeting about it, and I tried to. I was hoping Jeff Egan would reach out to him because he was right up in Jeff's neighborhood. So there's a good game store around there. So Scott's an awesome dude.
Absolutely.
If you ever see any event that Scott is organizing or running or talking about, and he's going to be there, that's going to be a good event. So definitely check that out.
That's Andrew. That's Andrew there with the hat on backward, and then that's Kit to the right. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Very good. Okay. So let's. Oops, hit the wrong thing. There we go. Awesome. So let's now mention it. How did you do in that tournament?
That you made all these mistakes in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I tied for first. And
of course.
Again.
Of course you did.
This is 3 tournaments in a row. Like, I'm not trying to be self-effacing here. Like,
that's really good.
Objectively, so I was playing on the top table against Matt, who again, a much better player than I am. And if I'd actually played like I intended, going aggro Sylvaneth and threw in the extra 3 sides, would have had a good chance of winning that game and taking the tournament. And then got best order out of that one. Battleshock Bash, finished second, got best. And then, to be fair, we didn't have many people there. And but yeah, I mean, there's 20 players, a lot of good players, and I had no business tying for first place. Now, I mean, I wanted to mention the whole issue with bringing a commissioned army, because again, I think, like, just for me personally, with at least if you're going to an event with that kind of scoring system, I'm not comfortable getting a really high score on painting and then that having an impact on me tying for first place or potentially winning an event.
Somebody had mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
I actually think it should be okay if you at least acknowledge like army commissioned by and acknowledge the painter who did the work.
Yeah. I'd love to hear more opinions about this. I mean, I don't necessarily hear it talked a lot. You know, it's whatever. I just find it awkward as someone who's bringing a commissioned army, or if I were bringing a borrowed army and knowing that that impacted my overall score at this tournament. So, but yeah, I ended up getting second. I lost the tiebreaker to Andrew, and then somehow managed best general at the events. So yeah, weird.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Indeed, man. Congratulations. Despite how self-effacing you're being, I know you're actually a very good player, and so you know.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you beat me.
As though that's some sort of watermark. Okay. No, here's what I'll say. Like, the difference between people who do consistently well in tournaments, okay, and people that just sort of luck their way in occasionally. So, you know, Relian's a good example of this in my mind. Like, Brad is a great player.
Yeah.
Okay. And Brad is a great player despite what the dice do. Okay. And what I mean by that is, like, great players react, have a solid plan going in and know what they're going to do, but are good at reacting to the situation on the ground and don't get caught up in the nuance. They remember the important things. They remember what they're doing. And when the dice turn against them or a situation breaks bad, they know how to react and pull it back.
Right.
That's really the separation line.
Yeah.
And you know, he's a great example of somebody I've watched pull victory from the jaws of defeat because he always kept his head on a swivel in that way. Yeah. And I think when you play, you're very, like, I've watched you play and you're methodical in the same way that you're always examining and looking for you don't get rattled. Yeah. You know, it's easy for people to get rattled.
Yeah, there were a couple of games I pulled out. Yeah, thankfully, which we can talk about one, the last one. And it is one thing that, I mean, I'm still a very new tournament player. I mean, I've really only played now in 3 tournaments. I mean, I played in the doubles, but just in terms of like singles or, reportedly coming to try to win these tournaments, but yet, well, just to say it real quickly. So I do find like I have this, and again, I don't mean to make a big deal about this, so I'll quickly cover it, but I'm not very good at being consistent about how I need to be playing, which I don't feel that comfortable with for a few different reasons. So like the game against Brendan Melnick at Battleshock Bash, we were playing the Slobberknocker GT pack, and it has secret hidden agendas, which are basically the schemes. And I looked at that scheme that I got, or the hidden agenda I got, and I'm like, oh, well, this is going to be easy for me to do with my tree revenants. And then how it worked, I simply had to, put my tree revenants on my board edge, and then hop in the round to another board edge, completely away from his army. He's got very few models on the table, and I just have to walk them off the board. Well, that's cheesy as hell. Like, it's a significant, so I'm not going to do that.
That's 3 points.
Cheesy.
That's 3 points.
I should be in the mindset of that's 3 points. Well, that ultimately cost me that tournament. And that happened again on a couple occasions at Slobberknocker. Now it all kind of evened out in my mind because, again, I had no business because of a number of other factors that I know about that happened in that tournament that went in my favor that probably should not. So it kind of all evened out. But anyway, sure. I need to get more consistent about. I just find that interesting, kind of examining my own psychology, what it's worth.
No, you play if there are advantages, you play them and you take the free points. Yeah, that's how you play.
Because it's just as likely that next game you're not going to have those, or you're going to be in a bad position. And 2, as Doc taught us, you play for blood. Okay? Like that's just you.
Like if you want to play for fun and roll some dice, that's awesome. But that's not what tournaments are.
That's not what
tournaments are. And I'm not encouraging like whack play.
Yeah,
right.
I'm saying like, there are a set of incentives. You should never be a bad player. You should never be a bad faith person. You should never be a douche. That's not what I'm encouraging. I'm just saying, like, when you have an obvious answer to do something, count that as a blessing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the old saying is don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah.
Bite you is the next line. Like, that's the point, because yes, like the next time you're going to get in game X, whatever, X+1, and that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? So you're
that
gonna
everything's not going to work out.
right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it happened in game 2 against Andrew. I saw something that ended up, I learned quickly afterward, a lot of the players did in terms of playing the scenario and how you could kind of cheese the scenario. And I was like, I'm not going to do that, but I should have, because I got destroyed in the first turn by Andrew.
All right,
anyway,
so you're fine. So we'll turn to talk about the meta. We'll start on the Tempest, okay?
Yeah.
But let's finish out some hobby time. Tom, what have you been working on, buddy? I need to publicly shame Tom, so give us a
Okay.
Bark. I've been gluing some bark to a board. Here, let me show you.
Mm-hmm. We're all excited.
There, I have some bark on a board
Nice.
right there. I glued that. This is what I've done this last week.
Impressive. Well, hey, I have no room to talk. I don't really do hobby as. So
well, that's why I said like this was all your hobby
kind of
time.
hobby.
You do.
I do.
Your tournament was the hobby. You know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes. Yeah. I would certainly count playing in a tournament as engaging in your hobby.
Hey,
that's your hobby time.
I finalized my list for Holy Havoc. Does that count?
Sure. No, that's it. Yes, that does count. 100% that counts. Sure. List building. Yeah, absolutely. That's yes.
So there we go. That's what I did this week. So now I know what I need to paint. That's the key.
There you go. All right. See, that's something. That's something. Gen Con is next week, obviously. I found out there was another small painting competition going on at Gen Con in addition to the normal one. So over the weekend, I worked up another model for that. Fun little chibi guy, because there's a chibi competition. So there's that. And then more specifically, what I've been working on this week is my penitent engine for 40K.
Oh wow, man!
This is out of the TGG2 Kickstarter.
I was gonna say, I was trying to figure out which GW model is that.
Yeah, if only. Well, as soon as you make them, I'll buy them. GW. That's all you got to do. You got a bunch of cash waiting on you. Yeah. So this is yes. It had to be modified in many ways because I was not pleased with it in what it had out of the base. But yes, this is her, and then it's got this little girl who sits inside there. You know, because of course that's the thing there. So yeah, it's almost done now. I'm just finishing her up, and then put it on a base, and we're good to go.
Is that Duralis? Like, is that the actual? Did you? Is that the crying? Okay, so you just chopped off her lower torso.
Chopped off her legs. Yes, correct.
Legs. So that's not the normal model for that.
No, the normal model for it is like a bishop, like sort of a bishop looking,
like a heavily robed bishop. Yeah.
Yeah, who's like doing this. But the problem is like penitent engines aren't like that. It's not, you know what I mean? They're people who are chained to them basically to pay penance for sins. So I needed, and she actually fits in there perfectly and looks great in that. So I was very pleased with that. I think because I hate the normal penitent engine model, I'm not going to buy old metal penitent engines. I'll probably just do a couple different conversions from different games models. You see what I'm doing, GW? You see what you're making me do? Make the new models. That's all you got to do. It's that easy. So easy. All right.
And he would paint them and put them all over Twitter, and everybody would share them because Vince is a stupid good painter, and then you get free advertising.
Step 1, make plastic sisters. Step 2, step 3, profit. There you go. See, it's basically the underpants gnome scheme. It's that easy. Yep. All right.
We didn't talk about this. I'm starting to feel like we're going to see Death Guard and not any AOS new releases in September. That looked like that Mortarion was probably the next White Dwarf.
Oh, I mean, certainly we're going to see Death Guard, yeah, over the next couple weeks. No doubt about that.
We'll have AOS in September.
You think we'll have new releases?
We will have AOS in September.
New releases?
I am. Right. Yeah, we will.
All right.
Yep.
And I know that's the general expectation. So.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I would tend to agree, but
nudge.
Time will tell.
Okay.
All right. So let's turn. You're only an hour and a half in. Let's turn and talk about some meta, as usual for our show. When as was commented on the last show, every show with Tyler on it. If you see Tyler's name,
just
tuck in, folks. It's gonna be a long one. So that's fine. I
don't feel like this first hour and a half I'm to blame much for this. I feel like I've been fairly efficient with my time, at least.
No, it's probably true. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just saying there's a correlation, not causation, my friend. All right, so let's talk about some meta. So I thought what it'd be interesting to talk about today is we're kind of at the end of this meta, right? Because I don't think there is anyone who honestly thinks that the meta is not going to change probably fairly dramatically with the release of GHB 2017, between the sheer number of allegiance abilities that are getting added, between the difference in what becomes battle line and what doesn't, between the change in minimum core size, between the change in points all over the place, between the addition of allies. Like, this is a nuclear bomb to the meta, right? I mean, certainly. So I'll pause there for a moment and say, Tyler, would you agree with that basic summation?
I would more agree with it than not. I don't know if I'm necessarily 100%, at least depending on, my interpretation of what I think you just said and how strongly you seem to feel about it being a
I feel very strongly, but go ahead and give me if you feel not as strongly, go ahead. Like, please share why. What do you think will change, will be the impact? Why do you think some stuff will continue to stay the same, basically, is what you would say? Because I think we're going to see a lot of stuff upended here. Almost all expectations.
Yeah, I generally think that's probably more true than not. I mean, there are certain components that I would certain aspects of the current quote-unquote meta that I would expect to still be strong. Long-range threats, whether that's crap that you throw on a Bellwind and doing 36-inch mortal wounds to your opponents, not being very nice, or it's Skyfires, or it's spamming Chronothon.
Like, I think there's going to be some hard counter. I think there's going to be some hard counter stuff that's being introduced in the meta.
There is
really hard. That'll really hurt strong. Like what I mean by that is, it only takes one or two, like, viable builds in the meta to shut down a style of play. Like, if it's a hard counter, because then if you can't win all 5 games,
that's true,
or you don't have a good shot, then it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think those kind of builds. I mean, we saw that, like, Jack Armstrong is an incredible player. Jack did not win eggs with 27 Skyfires. He brought Joe's, or whatever, 21 Skyfires with a ton of Brimstones. And Jack didn't win. I mean, we don't know the details why Jack didn't win that tournament. He finished in the top 10. And yeah, you're right. We're already there with, I mean, Stormcast, obviously.
Yeah, like Stormcast are a great example of that. Yeah. Like, they have hard counters to ranged, like strong range lists.
So good, yeah.
And it only takes maybe one more of those to float around in the meta to really crunch that. And the reality is that there are tons of lists that are going to have alternate deployment 9 inches off a line. And being able to drop something 9 inches off of a line that can engage into melee, like we've already seen in some of the dispossessed items, just normal dwarves are going to be able to tunnel up 9 inches out.
Yeah, I was curious if that was one of your guys' expectations. My general expectation is that we're going to see a lot of new builds, factions, etc., that have great mobility, and it's going to be more dispersed in the meta.
So let's talk real quickly about what we think is currently, sort of at the top. We can kind of do this, break it up kind of by alliance or something, or talk about some of the more interesting items in the meta, things we know about, things that are out there. Yeah. And we can kind of touch on why we think they'll be disrupted or not, right? Yeah. Obviously, it's a bit early to pick new winners. That's going to probably be likely impossible.
Yeah.
But we can talk about disruption. So do you want to explain the Tempest out of the gate? Like, do you want to talk about how it functions?
Yeah, absolutely. I need to pull up the War Scroll real quickly just to make sure I get it right. Tom, do you remember offhand the Master of the Skies exactly? Oh, I've got it. I've got it here, actually. Okay. All right. So Tempest Lord's Harbinger Chamber is a potential 1-drop. So it's a super mega battalion. It requires you taking the Vanguard Wing, which is one of the more solid general battalions in the Stormcast book. Now with this, it must contain 4 units of prosecutors rather than 3. And then, guys, it is 2 Judicators and 1 Liberator. Is that right?
Off the top of my head, let's say.
For what?
For Vanguard?
For the Vanguard, yeah.
It's 4 prosecutors rather than 3 is the requirement in the base Vanguard wing.
Yeah, right? But then isn't there Judicators and... Oh, or is that just the ability that you can strike an enemy unit? I was thinking that the Judicators and
My Stormcast book is out of reach.
So
Okay.
hold on. So you're saying for the actual Vanguard itself?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have my book here.
I was thinking that those are built into the Vanguard, and it doesn't necessarily matter, but
The point is some mixed.
Oh yeah. So the Vanguard wing is base 3 prosecutors, 1 liberator, 1 judicator. Prosecutors have to go up to 4 in the B battalion.
Okay, awesome.
And then when the Liberators and Adjudicators are within 8 inches of each other, if a hit roll for an attack is made from the Liberators Adjudicators 6 or higher, it goes 2 wound rolls instead of 1. And then the Liberators can vanish with a Crash of Thunder and basically teleport across the board and pop up within 5 inches into combat if they want to.
Yes, so that's really strong. And then you layer on top of it the additional abilities and toys that you get with Tempest Lords. The most important one, really the one that matters the most, Masters of the Skies.
Yep.
So this is the one that I think a lot of people missed. I certainly missed. Tempest Lord units that can fly can make a charge move in the charge phase, whether or not an enemy unit is in range.
Yep.
Let that sink in.
It's a free 2d6 move.
And well, in the case of prosecutors, it's 3d6, I believe.
Yes.
And they can move even if that move would not finish within a ½ inch of an enemy unit.
Yep.
So fly can make a charge move in the charge phase, whether or not an enemy unit is in range, and they can move even if that move would not finish within a ½ inch of an enemy unit. That is insanely good in Age of Sigmar, I've come to find out. And it's interesting how 2 tournaments, Eggs and now Slobberknocker, hit upon, we saw 2 people, one win, and Chris Welfare finished 3rd, do really well with it around the same time. So I won't necessarily get into take your tally. If you want to look at it, it's online, you can find it. The command trait is really cool too. I think a number of people probably would not take it. You might run like a Celestin on Drakov for the 24, 24-inch immune to battle shock bubble. That's so amazing with Stormcast, of course. But if you do take it, in your hero phase, your general can order a strike on an enemy unit within 3 inches. Friendly Tempest Lords units can re-roll hit and wound rolls of 1 for attacks that target that unit until your next hero phase. That's nice, but again, you might be running the Celestin on Drakov with command ability. But Master of the Skies, you can do so much with that. It makes the Celestin Prime absolutely worth 360 points. If he goes down any, he's going to be an absolute bargain in this Tempest Lords battalion. Tom, you probably know why. I don't know if you want to get into why he's so amazing in this.
Are you just saying because he can retreat in and out, or are you talking about?
So he can retreat in and out. So it does a few things. So it allows you to guarantee his charge. So normally, of course, you put him right outside of 9. You have the ability that he has. He can choose. You roll a dice. One of your dice, you can choose what that dice becomes. So you roll your 2d6 charge. You just need to get a 3-up on those 2 dice to successfully complete a charge. So you can fail that. You could roll a 1 and a 1. You could roll. So you could roll snake eyes. All right. So this absolutely guarantees the charge because you do not have to complete the charge within a ½ inch of an enemy unit.
Right.
It also means that you can screen him. You can put a block of Liberators with Staunch Defender, a 3-up rerolling 1 or 2-up rerolling 1s. You can screen him. A lot of units are not going to be able to actually swing back because Gamraz is, I believe, 2-inch reach. I hope it's not 3-inch reach. I think it's 2-inch reach. So it's amazing for that reason. It helps keep him out of harm's way. And yeah, there's just, a lot of the games with the scenarios in AOS, you get objectives quickly or move them around the board, a lot of secondary objectives. The amount of shooting output that this army can do is crazy. It is an absolute walk and shoot gumless, jack of all trades, Chris Welfare. So let's see, Andrew's version of this was something like Celestin on Drakov, Celestin Prime, Knight of Zeros, of course another flyer, Knight Venador, another flyer, Luckstone, Knight of Zeros, you're lighting up with his beacon, reroll hits of 1, that's amazing. You are, Celestin Prime is dishing out mortal wounds with his Comet Strike. You're dishing out mortal wounds from the Celestin on Drakov. Chris's version of this had 2 Knight Heraldors, for example, to blow the hell out of Sylvaneth list. So I think it's just amazing. the general purpose utility of what you can do with this with Tempest Lords.
Yeah, my version of this, as Sooners mentioned in the chat, was running a block of 20 Liberators, which you could teleport around, and so you could actually pull my shenanigans with my Chaos Warriors using Stormcast.
Yeah, Scott Sproul had that. He had a block of 20 that he was using in Tempest Lords at the event.
Yeah, and I mean, like what I would say is there's a lot of utility in that list. Like, and there's so much mobility. Like, mobility is king in that list.
Yes.
It is nuts because, yes, your point on the prosecutors charging 3d6 and just moving around the board, that becomes their extra movement, right? Yep. Because they don't, as you said, they don't need to end near an enemy.
Yeah, you shoot, you get with an 18, fire with
and then you
15,
retreat.
18 prosecutors, retreat, get out of range. Yep.
Exactly. Or move to an objective safely or whatever, right? So it lets them still be shooty combat effective while still being able to control objectives and stuff like that. Your point about the prime being, just so in case anybody missed it, because I really want to lay into this because it is such a good point you're making. The Celestial Prime has to cover 9 inches when he comes down.
Yeah.
He can set a die to whatever result he wants. If one of the 2 die is a 3, you complete the charge because you can just set the other one to a 6, right?
Yep.
But this means you cannot fail the charge because he only has to. You don't have to end within a half an inch, so he just has to get into the range where he can be in combat, i.e., 3 inches away, where he could now trigger a pile-in, right?
Pile-in,
so
exactly.
Even if you roll 2 1s, one of those 1s becomes a 6, right?
Oh, that's another piece of this.
Yes.
The rule is, and it's another thing that a lot of us missed, you can pile in if you completed a charge successfully,
or you're within 3 inches.
Within 3 inches. So you don't even have to be within 3 inches.
Correct.
You keep him outside. So you cannot actually, so you activate him last. You cannot even activate against him in a lot of scenarios, in a lot of situations.
Right. Yep. So you can hold him. He can auto get there, and you can hold him so he's safe until the point where he swings in and just smashes things in the face.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's and as you mentioned, like he can. It also gives you the thing what you were talking about, to put a really fine point on that. Everybody imagine in your heads unit you want to kill, unit of your liberators that you just shot across the board, right? And so now they're there whenever you shot them. And now the prime is charging, and he's going to end up behind them, swinging over top, right? Because, yes, you're right. He does have a 2-inch range on his hammer, so he can reach over top of a 40 mil base.
Without having to worry about even a 3-inch reach, Durthu with Guardian Sword attacking him, at least in that activation. Yep.
Right. In that activation, yes. Which is usually what he needs to do the damage he needs, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's good.
It is a, it's the movement shenanigans. I mean, we've mentioned it so many times that movement is king in AOS, and people who play the movement game well, and there's lots of different ways to do it, by the by, right? Yeah. Sometimes that means teleporty shenanigans. Sometimes that means just, fast movie shenanigans. Sometimes it means movement placement shenanigans, right times to retreat, appropriate use of the movement of chaff, all these kinds of things. Yeah. It is the most complicated element of the game in as far as its complexity, and what I love about it is it's so free flowing. In that, you know what I mean, like it can just turn on a dime on you, and you really have
you have to be on your feet. You have to think on your feet, because that's really what dictates good generals, is not the plane you go in. It's how you respond to the situation at hand.
And I've learned there's a considerable gap. I mean, there are so many gaps between level of generalship within this game. I absolutely love it. You look at someone like Andrew, Brad, Matt, and many others. I would never consider myself at their level of generalship yet. Hopefully I can get there, because of their capacity to do movement so well and all of these different variables. I find it fascinating how the vast majority of people, and I would even say maybe the majority in our community, undervalue the tactical depth and nuance of this game at the highest level.
There's nothing wrong with that. Here's what I don't mean that in any kind of dismissive way. I just mean like it exactly mimics all the best parts of Magic. Okay. So like, as somebody who was a tournament Magic player for a long time, Magic bifurcates into a pyramidal shape of 3 groups of players broadly. Okay. and this is what Magic has a very low barrier of entry, just like AOS. And most anybody can pick it up, play it, understand the simple rules, and go. And you don't need to understand these nuances of tactics to have a good game, right?
Yep.
Like you both can understand how to move around the board very simply, but you can understand how to play cards. That's the majority. That's the big block.
Right.
Okay. The next up block is is people who are good tournament players and who understand how to interact with all of the nuance in a reasonable way and will make appropriate decisions utilizing that nuance. In Magic, that often manifested in interesting ways to utilize the stack or card interactions or synergies or stuff like that. In AOS, it's usually unit interactions and synergies, placement around the board, interaction with objectives, and things like that, right? But then there's this sliver. Okay, there's the top of the pyramid. And in Magic, that was people like LSV, like Lou Scott Vargas, and people like this who understood the game in such a way that it's hard for everybody below them in the pyramid to even grasp how they think.
Yeah.
Right? Like, as somebody who considered themselves firmly in the second tier of that pyramid during my tournament years, I looked upon the third tier with awe, right? As to like how they could read the table.
Flow of the game.
Yeah, and the flow of the game. They knew what was in your hand based on the one card you dropped, right? And they knew what they were going, like they could just know. And it's the same way with a fantastic player, because they understand to the exact nuance how to do all those things. And it is wonderful to watch that be possible, right? Where you can have new players play it, engage with all the rules, have a fun time. It's fine, but there's still that minute to learn, lifetime to master aspect of it, right?
Definitely.
So again, that's, and you know, the reason I say the best parts of it is because there are dark aspects to tournament Magic as well. But to me, this is always one of the best ones because it encouraged people to think about the game and engage with it, right? And I think that's a good thing. But it didn't require you to do it. If you wanted to play it on the setting of just having fun and doing a beer and pretzels game at your club or in your basement, you can. And the game still plays great and is super fun and interactive and tactical on that level too.
Yeah.
That is a excellent place to be. Okay. I have played plenty of serious tournament Magic where I'm going like hard edge and trying everything I can do to eke out every point. And I've played plenty of dumb, fun tribal games where we're all just sitting around tossing cards. And it's the same with AOS now, right? Where you can get up, you've got some models, you're playing with the units you like, you're having fun. So anyway, okay, cool. Yeah, I think that battalion is stupid good, and I will give Tom full credit here. Normally I bust his chops when he says he called stuff and he didn't. Here in this case, he did make a big deal of this battalion, and I will say I think you're absolutely right. I think this thing is fantastic, and so let's do a little prediction. The thing I said we shouldn't do, right? So how much does this list get impacted by the changes coming?
Not a lot. And here's why. Two things I'll say. If prosecutors with spears, with tridents, with like don't go up to be the same as the hammers, because right now they're undercosted.
They've got to go up.
If they don't go up, because they weren't heavily used. So the key is that so when you think about balancing, oftentimes the things that don't get touched are the things that aren't in use because people don't see their potential.
Well, you're saying that the javelins were not in heavy use?
Not as much. Like they were filler. Does that make sense? They weren't being used as...
You're saying, right. He's saying at the time when they made these points distinctions, they were around, but the Tempest Lords wasn't being used really effectively. They were just sort of a thing people made use.
This book went to print 6 months ago.
Yeah, shout out to Brian Carmichael. He's one who comes to mind in the UK scene who was, I think this was before the new book came out, but Brian was, it was either before or it was right around. Brian was running a lot of prosecutors. But yeah, I agree.
Was he winning tournaments with them?
No, I don't think so. He was doing well.
This is what I would say is that are these things Skyfire saw heavy use and that was very public.
Yeah. And
so those are going to get hit just because people see their effectiveness.
Right.
But so for example, here's one thing that it may or may not get hit, like Be'lakor. Be'lakor is a really good tool. In fact, he has unique tools. He's amazingly pointed at 240.
Yeah.
he should go up in points, but he was not in very many lists. And so I don't know if he's going to get touched or not. And so what I would say is that I don't like this list was not in heavy use 6 months ago when these points got locked in. I don't anticipate we will see this list impacted heavily this year. And in fact, I think they probably had a good feel for where Stormcast were.
Yeah.
Back when they printed the book in February. And so we may not see any Stormcast points shift.
Yeah, no, I generally agree with you. And also there is, I think, a fair potential that Celestine Prime is going to get knocked down by 20 or 40 points.
Right.
So that will offset that a little bit more, even if the Javelins go up by 20 each. So yeah, you're probably right with that. So we've got Hallowed Knight, Celestial Vindicators, Hammer Strike, Ether Strike. I haven't seen a lot of use of the Justicar and Angelos, the two Vanguard conclaves. No. There's a chamber, but it's outside of 2,000 points. I think that Justicar and Angelos can be quite competitive as well. Looking at all of these, though, I mean, I haven't played against all of them, but I looked at all the others. I'd play against Hallowed Knights and have play tested Ether Strike. Yeah, Tempest Lords really stands out, at least at the moment. I mean, it could just be recency bias, just in terms of strength, and yeah, unlikely to be heavily impacted.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like, I think this is new enough. I think this is going to be one of the ones that there could be impacts. Like you said, like the prosecutors, if they move up to the other price, it's going to have some impact. I don't know that it'd be huge, but I agree with you also that I think the Celestine Prime will get cheaper. Yeah, because I just think he's overcosted in most lists right now.
Right. And the Ether Strike Force is another shout. Someone like Thomas Kemp has been running a heavy Ether Strike Force in the UK tournament scene, and he's done decently. I don't think he's won a tournament. He's had a couple of top 5 finishes. I think he had a 2nd place finish at a fairly good sized event. At Eggs, he was maybe 11th. He wasn't too, maybe a little lower. I mean, that's not a large data set. Obviously, there's a lot of variables you don't know about. At the same time, he was running 18 long strike Raptors in 2 units of 9. It was a very heavy Ether Strike list. I mean, that might be another example of shooting heavy counters.
Right. All right, so let's move to some other stuff. So I agree. I think on the whole, these guys will stay competitive, at least. Basically retain much of their same position based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hit some other top sort of meta placers. Yep. Okay. So I don't know. Who would you like to pick on next?
Double Cannon Ruck. That's an obvious one.
Okay, great. Sure. Do you want to kind of hit both of the destruction boys? Do you want to hit like your double Cannon Ruck, and we can talk about the snowball throwers as well, like that kind of?
Yeah, we essentially have,
because they sometimes overlap, obviously, right? They kind of get in each other's. They end up getting each other's stuff.
Yeah, we've got some variations to this, but essentially we have the single Cannon Ruck with Bone Splitters Allegiance. We have the now what seems to be more popular double Cannon Ruck, which just recently took out, I believe it took out Eggs, the Element Games Grand Slam, and has done pretty well in general. And then we have Moo Clan, Maxime's list that was copied quite a bit. Just in case anybody doesn't know, it's the Frostlord on Stonehorn, the triple Huskard on Thunder Tusk with the triple Snowballs, and doing the healing now with the triple Huskard on 2-up. So you do 18-inch range, mortal wounds, 6 mortal wounds undamaged, or with like 3 wounds or less on 2-ups per those. So potential 18 mortal wound output, 18-inch range, and you can heal them amazingly well. And then you've got the 3 units of 20 grots each.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, with fanatics to handle for screening for the combat, alpha strike, etc.
And to take objectives and stuff. Yeah.
Take objectives, and then usually a grot shaman accompanies it. And then you've got the Cannon Ruck variation, which there's a couple of variations with that. People like Darren Palmer, Jack Armstrong, and others are running, and Frostlord on Stonehorn, maybe 2 Huskard on Thunder Tusk, maybe 1 big block of grots, 60 block, and maybe 30, 40 of the 1 unit of the Arrow Boys with the Cannon Ruck. That's a pretty common list now that I've seen, the kind of like, I don't know, Cannon Beast, with a bit of both, dipping in both. So those seem to be, Tom, is that generally matched?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. The only exception to that, there's been some variation that have not been copied as much, which are like 2 stone horns, and so instead of going
Right.
1, they go 2 and 2 and 2.
Right. I think Jack ran
then
that at a recent event. Yeah.
Yeah, and then often they'll mix in, instead of running the goblins, they'll mix in either a cunning ruck, like a single cunning ruck, or they'll mix in a bunch of savage orcs as their battle line.
Yeah.
Like blocks of 10. So,
right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there are a number of variations of this, but they're all fairly.
What do you guys think? Starting whichever one you want to start with.
Sure. Take it, because it's all, like I said, it has all become kind of the destruction stew, right?
Yeah.
Some number of Kun and Ruck-ish type things, some number of Grot / fanatic objective takers and charge blockers and chaff and snowball throwers, like all in varying play around combinations.
Well, I mean, it seems to be a fairly safe bet that the Kun and Ruck is going to be nerfed, in part, if nothing else, because of the play experience. There are a lot of
kick it in the teeth.
What's that?
Just increasing the body cost by 20 points.
You mean putting the minimum to 20? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh, you're saying the base
going from 100 for 10 to 120 for 10.
Which is certainly at minimum what's going to happen.
Which is a very small, but suddenly you lose 10% of your points.
Yeah.
If you're running 2 blocks, you're going to lose 160 points immediately.
Right.
To just archer bodies.
Yeah, that'd be a big blow. Yeah.
And that's a 20-point increase. If they go up to 140 for 10, which is still 20 wounds, let me point that out. You've lost 320 points. Or no, I'm sorry, 360 points. No. Math is hard today. 40, 80, 320 points. Yeah.
I suspect they'll be 140. I kind of like your idea of just 120. I mean,
if they go to 140 is what I'm saying, it's going to hurt. Like, it won't be viable in a double block. At best, what you'll have to do, because you have to find 160 points from somewhere just to run 1 block.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to want to completely nerf it. They're selling a bunch of models. I mean, certainly they're going to want to obviously increase the other variety. More options in the Bone Splitters Allegiance. That's first and foremost, I'm sure, on the list.
So do they increase it to 140, but then give a horde discount at 40 models?
Yeah,
that's the other question.
Yeah,
like if anybody's going to run hordes, it's going to be greenskins.
Yeah.
I mean, I think probably the answer is yes, and I think it's going to look like the Storm Vermin point spread, right? Where you'd it would. I'm not making a prediction here. Let me be very clear. I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying I think this is the likely world, but I wouldn't be surprised if it had the Storm Vermin point spread of 140, 500. Okay. So in other words, what you'd end up 100 points over where you are now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And what I'll say is I don't know if the cost for let's take the snowball throwers out of this for a moment.
Yep.
And focus on the orc side. I don't know the world where they don't go up in points. Let me just say that. Okay.
Yeah.
That would be, I would be shocked beyond belief to see them still at 100. Now, who knows? I've been surprised many times before with this kind of thing. But I think that they're right now just the number of bodies, the number of wounds you're getting, what their output and their effectiveness vis-a-vis their points, they're far too efficient. I think probably everybody would agree with that for the most part. I don't know that I need to see them totally kneecapped. If they were at the 140, 500 discount thing, that's probably still about right. Like sniff test, that smells about right to me.
Yeah.
What I'll say is I think that even in that world, that's not the biggest part of their problem. Okay. I think these guys are getting kicked in the teeth regardless of how much their points move. And the reason I say that is because of the things we've talked about, like the ways that every army is going to have to deal with these kind of large number of shooting, attacks like this is going to increase a lot. But through either becoming more resilient against it, getting across the table easier. And once you get into those guys, there's a lot of wounds, but you can tear them up pretty fast if you've got a decent hammer going into that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like they're a big pile of meat. I'm not disagreeing with that, right? It's as Tom mentioned, it's 20 wounds per 10 guys, but it's 20 wounds per 10 guys wearing t-shirts. You know what I mean? Who don't really have much in the way of stopping incoming damage. So the fact that people will be able to get at them and strike at the sensitive heart of them easier.
Yeah.
The fact that there's probably that when the meta shifts around, there may be like how much ability do you have to still snipe characters could be highly impactful to them, right? Because if you can zap the boss out, it makes obviously a huge difference to the overall effectiveness, right? So like, how easy is it to then with your movement shenanigans start picking that guy out, or is there still enough long range shooting that's viable all over the place? If suddenly like KO becomes more viable because of allies, right? And suddenly like that, which they have their sniping power is it's high. Okay. And if suddenly
KO is already pretty viable, at least Clan Zilfin is already pretty viable. I mean, guys, they are doing quite well at tournaments.
I don't know what you're talking about. This lies. KO are terrible. They're
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This is what I've been told. I've been told that they're junk.
Every UK tournament I'm seeing, like Carriage on Overlords, top 5 always, if not top 3.
Sure. What I'm saying is with allies, they could easily tip into being really, really good.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay? Into being tier 1, which I don't, as we normally define that. And I'm not sure they're there right now. Okay.
Fair enough.
And if that happens to the point where because the difference is when something moves up into that position, then what that means is that for you to take
everything has to respond to it.
Correct. If you're going to take pole position in a tournament, you have to have an answer for it because you will fight it on the top tables, right? Like odds are you will see it once it's in that position.
I was a little surprised that the Double Cannon Ruck won. Sorry, if I'm getting this wrong, if it were Eggs or another event, but the one recently because of Sylvaneth and Stormcast. I mean, we went through a period where Sylvaneth for the most part are not too worried about Cannon Ruck, singular. So yeah, I was a little surprised by that. Anyway.
Yeah. Now, the trick with the so that's I think they're in for a real kicking. Let me just say that. The Horde discount might be a nice little bonus prize, or
the other half of this, Vince. Let me just say this briefly. That the Horde discount may not apply to archers because remember, there's also like melee foot troops.
And sure, so like the regular savages.
I could see them giving the Horde discount to the regular savages on foot, but not to the archers, which are more of a quote unquote specialized troop. Because they're not the people on foot aren't, or the archers aren't battle line base.
Sure.
Like they may not incentivize actually the archers, which would be a small subtle shift.
Maybe that's we're way deep into it there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So the question then becomes what happens to the snowball throwers, and I'll be completely honest, I don't know. I have no clue. I think I
would be surprised if they move. And that's a bold statement.
Well, they're already very expensive. Here's what I'll say. I wouldn't surprise me if they didn't move.
Right. And that's what I would say. Like I mean, they're scary, but at the same time, like I haven't really ever had problems with them.
You can take there's a lot in the game that can take them out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Even if you got 3 of them on the board. And you've also got we talked about this last time, the issue of inside Beast Claw allegiance and then mixed.
Yep.
So if you're racketing them up, jumping them up within, it's pouring salt on a wound already right now with BCR. BCR needs a lot more help to be viable as a standalone allegiance. So that's an issue that I think would have to be taken into account. Yeah, I mean, Frostlord on Stonehorn, it's already at 460. It's a beast, but we all know it's one of the more powerful combat units in the game. 460 is a lot of points.
It is.
Yeah, and especially if everything else comes down.
Yeah.
Like all the other big stompy monsters come down. Like,
yeah,
it might be the case where he gets more expensive only in comparison. You know what I'm saying? Like point of fact, he's 460 now. He's 460 then. You know what I mean? Like nothing changed, but like the world, inflation or whatever, deflation, I guess, of everything else right, makes him more expensive opportunity cost. But at the same time, the goblins that often occupy those lists could move points around. There could be horde discounts that screw with the way you think about building those units. Like, there's just a lot of weird variables in that list that I honestly don't have a line of sight on what happens to.
Do you know who's not moving that we know?
Who?
Spiderfang. Did you see the article that they posted, the little image where they said you can slot in an Arachnarok and a unit of Spiderfang for the 400 for a contingent of mortal wounds? Let me just tell you, if the Arachnarok was going up a whole lot, you wouldn't be able to do that because it's like right at 380 already.
Sure. I would be shocked if they move the Arachnarok up in points.
Well, let me just say, it's a really point efficient unit. It's really scary when buffed up.
I'm sure that's true. I still don't think he's going to move up in points. Maybe I'll eat my hat, but
no, I don't think he will. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think he will. Which that's just good news for us Spiderfang players.
Sure, absolutely. The age of Spiderfang begins as allies, at least. I mean, not on your own, but you'll be showing up. Like, it would be hilarious.
No. Spiderfang on their own with 400 points of allies is going to be a real thing.
All right.
Like,
playing the flag on that.
Yeah, I think so. I think that Spiderfang, because you could run 2 blocks of normal riders and then get another battle line like of goblins, like foot goblins for the bodies, because model count was always their weakness. So now they could run a bunch of Moon Clan or something like that to actually get the bodies they need to hold points.
All right, so here's the new question. You ready? Let's play the theory game. What's the destruction allegiance ability going to be?
You don't think it's going to be movement?
Well, I think that they're going to change. They already showed they're changing the order, right? Allegiance ability, the generic order allegiance ability. And they commented that those are up in the air, right? Because of now there's these new allegiance abilities underneath them in most cases. So they're going to need to play around with that. And like that destruction allegiance ability being more or less the best one in the game, like whatever, we can have the argument over that and death. Okay, fine. I don't give a crap. They're both good. You win. That doesn't leave a lot of room over top of it, right? And what they don't want is everybody just going, well, screw my unique ability. I'll take that generic, right? So
I don't know. I don't know where they go with it, honestly. Maybe they tone it down. Like, it's currently how many? It's just a D6 of movement. Maybe
you can bump it up to plus. I think it's +2 you can get if you take the command trait.
Correct.
Yeah, I could see.
Normally a D6, it can be a D6 +2 around your.
I don't know.
Your job.
I don't know. I don't want to hypothesize. I'm more interested in guessing at how they're going to incentivize people to not do those.
Sure. Like, and again, they didn't say they're changing these. They said it's on the table. They said we know the order one's changing because they printed the text of the order one. And they said that these are up in the air and that they said they'll be making changes to the allegiance abilities, right? So I like the death one's another one where I would be shocked if it didn't have some kind of change, because it is so good. But yeah, we'll see. So and I think that also plays around with all these destruction lists. If you lose regular ability to destruction move, okay, that's
gonna hurt.
It's impactful to their performance, right?
Yeah. It's so hard to think about these things because death and destruction are, in particular, so dominated by the mixed, at least in my mind, in terms of the competitive play and those abilities currently. One thing I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later, but I wanted to talk with you guys about, some in my mind, kind of hear what you guys think are key questions. Like one key question in my mind is, will we see combat-oriented focused armies be more viable in competitive play? I'm actually curious your view on where the pendulum is right now at the moment as far as the splits. Are we at a 60-40 more away, 40 combat and 60 in the other direction? But anyway, we don't necessarily get into that right now.
Yes, my general feeling is it'll swing probably back to where it should, which is probably in favoring a wide middle of mixed forces, right? Like a sort of combined arms approach for most armies that have that capability, and it'll swing real far to the ones that aren't supposed to act like that.
Yep.
right? Like, because there are certain armies that are naturally built to act like
Mhm.
skew, right?
KO is an example of that.
Right.
KO defaults to a skew shooter.
Right.
Right.
And now with allies, it will probably like the allies will be able to allow you to pull that back in. I suspect, because I suspect they'll have a broad ally opportunity.
Yeah. So my answer is yes. What I think, and the reason I said I think you can forget about the entire meta, is because even with saying we don't know how Tempest Lords change or whatever, maybe they're not impacted at all. Who cares? Who cares that they're not impacted? Because they could remain as good or as viable as they are now and still be the 12th best thing.
Right.
Okay. Like and what I have loved is that, yes, there are a couple things that have remained viable, but the number of other things that people have kit bashed and searched around and found is always and endlessly surprising to me. And it's because of the ability to shove these disparate pieces together in interesting ways. And Allies is only going to help that, by the way.
It helps us Johnnies out significantly.
Sure. And when we're in Johnnytown right now, right? Because we're talking about the like list building. This sort of examination is a thoroughly Johnny activity.
When I look at we haven't really talked about our thoughts on, let's say, the quality or strength of the overall meta. My money, I think it's been incredibly good. I mean, as you're saying, Vince,
diverse.
It's been very diverse. So when I think about, like, I've talked with Vince about this before, one of my biases is of elegance. And elegance is part of the beholder. I think there's more objectivity to it than we often give credence to as far as a collective sensibility. We see this, throughout cultures and history, whether it's Japanese aspects of Japanese cultures in Buddhism or nowadays with the millennial movement, with millennials with digital nomad, minimalism, or of course Apple's design aesthetic, Tesla Motors, whatever you want. You can name all kinds of examples. But so elegance with AOS, I think about like speed, variety, and what's another? Simplicity, of course. Simplicity. Simplicity is at the heart of elegance. So speed, simplicity, and variety. And looking at the meta with, I'm curious what your guys would be, but my bias around those three seems really strong. I mean, we've got, Zinj, shooting and magic, pretty good mobility, some chaff, Stormcast. You go down, Stormcast, Bone Splitters, Caradron, Sylvaneth, Khorne, Mixed Order, Destruction, Chaos. Maybe a death with like Nagash and friends can compete a little bit if ran in the hands of someone like Brendan Melnick. I mean, it's a pretty incredible mix, in my opinion, that we've seen.
Or I would say mixed death. Like I wouldn't even say Nagash and friends. I would just say mixed death.
Mixed death. Okay. Yeah.
Like death has been in the worst spot of all of the alliance, but it's also the one that's primed to have the doors blown off because they're getting like a bunch of new allegiances, and I'm certain they'll have some kind of release focusing around Death Rattle at the end of the year when Shadespire comes out, right?
Yep. Right.
So like they are going to get shook up.
Yeah.
To me, it feels a lot. I hate to say this a second time, and I'm sure there's some viewers in the audience who hate any allusion to this, but it feels like the Magic meta in that I constantly watched as, even within a thing with no releases, with no new sets coming out, I would watch clever deck builders in the community put together new and interesting things that sort of spun expectations on his head, that combined things in different ways. You know what I mean? And that's what I've seen here too. People constantly like impressing me with the same tools we've mostly had for the past year, and just finding new ways to put the Legos together, right? And build something that's truly compelling and interesting.
Freaking Byron Ord's Mixed Order Elves and some Stormcast list that he put together and finished 4th at Heat 3 with. And it's one tournament. There are a lot of different variables, but then he went and did incredibly well. He finished like in the top 10 at Eggs with that, I think, basically the same list.
Right.
I mean, you look at it on paper and like, no.
Oh, that's all right. I'm just excited for the age of Bretonia because we're going to get swept up in them. As long as they don't strip free people keyword from my Bretonians, I get an allegiance ability now, so I'm very excited.
Yeah.
The age is back, baby. All right. No. So like we've gone on for a while, but I think I want to touch on a couple more. So there you go. We've still got some time. Let's talk about some chaos. Specifically, let's touch on Khorne and things like, you know, blood bombs and stuff like that, right? So you look at stuff like that. Where do we see them going? Obviously, we all know the blood bomb. You've got, you know, bloodletters buffed up, thrown forward perhaps by something like Sail, and then, you know, the mortal wound explosion, and then generally that unit melts and you send in unit 2, right, or something like that.
Yeah.
So the question is this: will Khorne have Slaves to Darkness Allegiance allies? That's the real question. That's the $1,000 million question. Because will Khorne have Slaves to Darkness as an allegiance option? Sail is Slaves to Darkness.
Right. Well, yeah, what that is, you know, so my general sense is that we haven't seen a lot of that are heavy, combat heavy, be consistently doing well at tournaments.
Yep.
Classic example of Iron Jaws. I mean, you know, Terry Pike was complaining about Blades of Khorne when he ran it and finished 10th. I mean, all kinds of examples that are out there. Now we are seeing, we just saw Murder Host win Bobo, Bravery won British Open.
Let me just say another one. Another one that we covered that I was like, we'd asked, is there gas in the engine of any of the Khorne stuff? And like, what if you'll remember, what I put my finger on was Murder Host.
Murder Host, yeah. No, I mean, it's
we had a fair amount of comment because Rob Neal, Rob Neal, you know, part of the Nashville, Alabama crew. He was at NashCon. Rob is putting together 120 bloodletters. So yeah, we had some conversation, and yeah, I do remember that, Tom. So yeah, I thought a while back about like the question, why are combat armories not doing well enough? And I was thinking about, okay, what are the variables? And I'm curious what would be the variables you guys would say. And 4 came to mind, 4 key variables: mobility, bodies, hitting power, and staying power. Okay, so when I look at Iron Jaws have got mobility and they've got hitting power, but they don't have great staying power. Brutes, as we know, they can fall to battle shock, 3 wounds, not necessarily a lot of models. 2 out of 4, I would say, with most Iron Jaws list. You know, I have seen some heavy Ardboy list
which are going to get better, by the way. Which are going to get better because they're going to get the discount. I'll lay money that they get a horde discount.
Yeah, hopefully go battle line.
And what I would expect is I would actually expect them to be generic battle line too.
Sure.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a common request. Yeah. So Ardboys, sure, they reduce your hitting power a little bit, but they really help you with bodies. So
all right, you get like 30 of those dudes. That is a hard nut to crack if they're in there. Like if they're in their anvil build.
I mean, that's as bad, if not worse, than my Chaos Warrior block.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're talking about there.
So Murder Host has a solid 3 out of 4: mobility, bodies, and as we know, incredible hitting power.
Yep.
A lot of staying power. So I was kind of thinking about combat army list, and so maybe if we see more kind of hitting at least 3 out of those 4. Anyway, that was one thing that came to mind, and thinking about the combat heavy ones like Khorne, and maybe why some of those lists were not doing as well previously.
Well, I mean, I think having access to allies, like if you had access to STD allies, that makes a big deal because you can fill holes like that pretty easy.
Right.
Slaves to Darkness themselves are going to be in a very interesting place because once the Nurgle book inevitably comes out, they'll have their choice of 5 different allegiances. Okay.
Yeah. Have they? I heard a rumor that Vanguard are now going to get fixed in terms of their allegiance thing.
I'm sure they will.
Okay.
Well, what do you mean they're going to get fixed?
Well, nobody would take Vanguard because you have to designate Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle.
No, that'll just be fixed by saying that that Everchosen can be allies with anybody. Like anybody can have Everchosen on a list. And as soon as you do that, like if you did that, it would fix all these problems. You could just drop them into a Tzeentch list.
Right. Okay.
They're Tzeentch allies. So I would expect
that and lowering their points cost.
Right.
Everchosen will likely be a very abundant ally.
Yeah, they make sense as almost the universal ally, right? But my point is, like, I will be interested. I'm not placing any bets on any ponies, but I will be interested to see how they end up because they have a wide range of models.
Yep.
When you figure in allies, they only need to fill 1,600 points. They can fill holes in their allies easily. And like I said, they have...
So you're saying Slaves to Darkness?
Yeah, Slaves to Darkness. Yep. And they'll have five different allegiance choices.
Yep.
That is a hell of a lot of variability for a set of models that are already quite variable in how they can perform,
they're
right?
flexible.
Yeah. So it'll be very interesting to see how people build with them. To me, when I look at things like, I think things like the blood bomb, I think will be diminished in that little trick. But I think that overall, what you'll see is Khorne and combat armies like you're describing in Chaos probably end up in a better place.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, I know this. It can't get any worse for Chaos General Allegiance abilities.
Sure.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, anything is better than the world I've been living in for the last 6 months.
Well,
of having to roll a d6 on a 1 in 6 chance of getting +1 to hit. And forgetting to roll for every single unit I activate.
Yeah.
Or just hating to roll for every single unit you activate because you're like, hold on, I need to roll this useless dice. Okay, nothing happened. Cool, let's keep going with this game.
Right. And so, I mean, what I like, as long as they don't change Cunning Deceiver, I don't see any reason not to go mixed Chaos for me. Like, obviously, Nurgle, like Mono Nurgle could be good or whatever, but
they will change the Chaos ability. Absolutely.
I hope so, because
if they buffed the Order one, and it was the other one that was like the generic allegiance abilities were so bifurcated into too good and too bad, right?
Yes.
So like, and they've already shown they changed the one.
The one bad one.
Yeah. By the way, quick answer to Phalanx, who said he'd rather see them make Varangard more befitting of their reputation. Points are an easy fix, but he'd love to see it along War Scroll updates. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I think Varangard are, to me, they already are really good. I mean, they are 5 heroes running around. Like, those dudes are pretty straight murderers. I've had them chew through enemy armies before. With great support. But hey, buff them if you want. It's tough because they're tightly tied to like Archaon and stuff like that. So, which is kind of a shame for them right now. But I that being said, I'm not going to complain. Like, sure, keep him at 360 and buff the War Scroll. I would be just as fine with that too. Right? Okay. Cool. Like that. Great. They're still under 400, so I can still fit them in. They're under the magic number, right? So, okay, great. What other? I mean, are there any other Chaos armies we want to mention, or anything else you want to touch on Chaos wise?
I have a sneaky suspicions Khorne's going to get stronger. It'll be interesting to see what. I mean, right now it seems like Khorne is still in the fairly early stages of folks figuring it out. I see a lot of Gore Pilgrims plus something. Gore Pilgrims plus, Brass Stampede is a really common one. Gore Pilgrims plus Skull Take, but usually Gore Pilgrims is very common right now.
Well, they're going to be hit by because certainly prayers will get limited to in much the same way as spells.
If you thought that, you think that'll happen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. If it doesn't, I'm going to be shocked because they're already better than spells, right? I mean, like statistically, you stand
countered.
Yeah, you stand about the same chance of success statistically, and they're uncounterable.
Right.
So, like, being able to just go like blood boil, blood boil, blood boil, blood boil seems not fantastic.
Right. Equivalent of Rob's toot meta.
Right, exactly. Exactly. But without the need to have any terrain near them, right? Like, you can be careful and more or less ignore the toot, right? Because you can keep your precious units away from terrain in a lot of cases, or only put them there when they absolutely need to be there. You can't not get blood boiled if you have stuff that's anywhere near the line, right? Like, that's just what happens. They walk up and just melt you. And I've got a buddy who runs Khorne about half the time when he plays. He runs Khorne in Stormcast. Like, he bought the starter box and he was like, "Yep, this is what I'm playing." Like, they're good here. And he runs the Gore Pilgrims, and he doesn't hold back, man. He's got freaking those priests running around everywhere, and they'll just run them all forward and just.
It's tough, man. That's a good list. So, okay, Tzeentch. What do you guys think about Tzeentch with Skyfires going up?
Sure, Skyfires will go up. We know that for sure. Like, again, sure, everybody's known they're too efficient from the moment they got printed.
So
the age of the enlightened has begun.
Yes, and I'm saying there's been clarification, by the way, on how battalions, apparently you can either drop them all at once or individually, but you can't like drop some and then drop the rest.
Yes, we played it at Slobberknocker that way after.
Yeah, and that's going to hurt Tzeentch badly.
I would just like to say, when did that FAQ? When was that FAQ published that said that?
It came from 40K.
Okay, because like whatever. I thought that was the case for the whole time, and then someone corrected me. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then nope, that's how it was. Okay,
no, it really, it was that way.
All right.
Yeah, I think it came from the 40K FAQ, which is worded identically. And they were like, oh, by the way, this is how this works. And
gotcha.
I think that's where the clarification came from. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think that's where it came from.
Gotcha. Yeah, I saw the same clarification pop up, and I was happy to see it because that's what I was understood. But I agree that's impactful. Skyfire is getting more expensive. Okay. I mean, they already had a couple pretty strong counters, as we have pointed out. Like Tom's list is a pretty strong counter. The Stormcast have pretty strong counters in their ability to, debuff shooting. Yeah, withstand and debuff shooting.
Yeah.
My particular guess is that I don't know that Tzeentch was super duper dominant anyways. I'm not sure they'll.
Well, I mean they were. They were showing up. Like, they were in the top lists from Adepticon on, from when people got them painted on. They were in the top 5 in almost every GT.
They're still doing incredibly well. It seems like it's evened out a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm putting my finger on.
Yeah, yes. People have discovered the counters and know how to respond.
Yeah.
I think they'll probably come back down out of people's perception of them being in the stratosphere. Again, because they
don't have staying power.
Yeah, and again, people being in your face. If combat armies get more effective at the application and the projection of power, which is where, to me, it all comes down actually to one thing that, Tyler, on your point on combat armies, many combat forces have had a problem with the projection of power. Okay. Like, Sale's entire reputation is built on the fact that he makes combat armies be able to project power.
Yeah,
they can put the units where they need it.
Like, and again, projection of power can be represented through mobility. Take this unit, put them in your face. It can be represented through range.
Right? I see. Okay.
Like, that's why Hell Cannon was so scary. Is that it could reach out 48 inches and put 2d6 mortal wounds on any target.
Yeah, and why, like, Terry, you'd see a lot of warp lightning cannons and Cornwall.
Yep. Because that's what those are. That's projection of power.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of manifestations of that. And I think a lot of combat armies didn't have the, like, they had hyper scary units. Like, they were like, you look at those guys and it's just like, Jesus God, those things are murderers. And that's true, but they had no ability to project that power anywhere on the board other than where they walked to, right? At a pretty normal pace, which meant that,
they'll
like,
project power there in 2 rounds.
Yeah. And like, that's a long time, baby. You know what I mean? Like, at that point, you might be way in the hole. So my point is, if the world shifts around where more armies can project power more easily, which is what Magic and shooting heavy lists were doing already, then Tzeentch's power by necessity, by comparison, falls, because people are going to be up in their face punching their Lord of Change, right? In its dumb bird face, like, a lot easier. People are going to be plowing through your, like, catching your Skyfires easier, right? Or getting them sewn up in boxes and catching them, stuff like that. Like, whatever.
Or making them pile in within 3 inches.
Sure. Like, putting them in a choice where they either have to retreat and do nothing or just pile in and fight, right? And so there's those kind of things can shift, I think, very much the effectiveness of the way that army plays.
Yeah.
I think they will still be magically dominant. I haven't seen anything that tells me that's going to move around. But I think Magic is for the most part underwhelming, and I don't care about it.
Well, you
really feel, Vince.
What's that?
I said, tell us how you really feel.
I hate magic. I mean, it's fine. It is exactly perfect. It can suddenly do crazy destructive things, and for the most part, I don't care about it. And there you go. And because of my personal inability to roll a 6, that's basically why I hate magic. My 2 dice do not understand what a 6 is. So, any spell with a casting value higher than like the Vermin Lord Skitterleap is more or less out of my reach. That's what I say. So there you go.
I was looking at the results of Bobo and Eggs. So actually, Jack Armstrong with Joe's Skyfire plus Brimstone list finished 1, 2, 3, finished 4th, no 5th, and then the next Zinch was 9th, I believe, and then with Eggs we had Tony Moore in 4th. Tony was running Host Duplicitous. Obviously, Tony's a well-known good player. I've heard a number of Zinch players say that they think Host Duplicitous is not that efficient, not a good competitive build. I don't know. I look at Tony's list and I just see a ton, like a ridiculous amount of magic output that you can do with the bodies. The 2 Lords of Change.
That's what's painful though. There's waste in 2 Lords of Change.
That's what a number of like James was telling me that James Tapia, who brought Zinch to Slobberknocker and finished 4th. Yeah.
Every time I build that list on paper, I look at it and go, man, I wish I didn't have to have a 2nd Lord of Change.
Yeah. So,
every single time.
So Change Shows variation. Change Show seems to be the null root of Zinch so far that I've seen. Yep. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the advantage of Change Host is the mobility, and it gives you all the essential tools that you'd want to drop in a single drop.
Yeah.
With the exception, obviously, of you can't get your Skyfires in there.
Right.
Yeah, and so as soon as you do Change Host with Skyfires, you will shoot up in drop number. Unless you're doing Host Duplicitous. And then you can only get six Skyfires in 1 Shaman.
Yeah, so it seems, for my money, like Sylvaneth, Karajan, and Zinch are the battle tomes are in a similar place where we just need more variety. Zilfin is KO, Null Root is, etc. We know this. So, yeah, we need to have, like, some of the demons go down, Exalted Flamers, the Exalted Flamer on Chariot. Other examples, I think the Pink, Blue, and Brim are probably fine. I don't know, maybe they're a little too low. I'm not sure. And then
for cost?
Yeah,
I haven't thought enough about 20 too high. Maybe not.
140.
140 is really expensive for Battle Line.
Yeah.
Like when you're forking that out and you're having to run 3 of those as Zinch, it's painful.
Yeah,
I would be very surprised if they go down.
They probably won't. They probably won't. But I feel it every time I build one of those lists.
Sure, I think that's you're supposed to. I think that's the tension of the thing.
Yeah,
it's not
it still
meant
seems
to
like
be a points choice.
Right. It still seems like Zinch is going to be pretty solid with allies, with massive regiments.
Yep.
Again, I mean, they've got to readjust some points, make more of that book viable, just as they need to do with Sylvaneth and KO, but more of the battalions viable. But yeah, I think they'll still be pretty strong.
Well, you mentioned it, so let's swing back around. Let's talk about your trees, as you obviously have a great amount of interest and experience with them. What do you see for your trees on the other side of this? Have you seen anything that concerns you? What kind of movements do you see? Where do you think you end up? To me, Sylvaneth have always been strong, but never tipsy-topsy, right? And that's kind of where they've been living for a while. That's my perception of them.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of mixed opinions about Sylvaneth that are out there, and I think those are. Speaking for myself, I have undervalued the strength of Sylvaneth in my podcast because I was a really bad player for a while, and I would like to think I'm getting better. And as I get better, I'm probably not saying anything new with a lot of us as we play our army. If you play Sylvaneth well, or if you play extremely well, again, someone like Brad or Sean Clark or Andrew, they are amazing. Now, they do have counters. We know they're susceptible to mortal wounds, as Elric Edge tells us every podcast that he does. So
everybody is susceptible to mortal wounds.
Right. So, I mean, they do have some strong counters that are out there. Most, yeah, right. Most everybody. The obvious starting point with Sylvaneth is the Kurnoth Hunters. All else equal, most of us expect them to go up. The question is it 20 or 40?
They'll be 220.
The general expectation is they're going to be 220. They're not going to break out the weapon profiles. It'll be 220 for all three, which I kind of wish they would break them out, but they only have one war scroll, so they probably won't. They need to go up. I'm fine with them going up to 220. I think we talked about this before.
Yeah.
If they find ways to sufficiently ensure that it's not a net nerf within Sylvaneth Allegiance. Because, yeah, I agree with you, Vince. So Laurie, I'm forgetting his last name, finished third with them at Heat 3 with an Alarial Null. So there's essentially 3 primary Null Root variations.
Right.
The Alarial build, the Drycha build, and the Durthu build. And Les Martin is most infamous for the Drycha and Durthu build. There were others who kind of put them together, but not as well known as Les. But so yeah, we have those 3 variations, and they are going to take a big hit if they don't find ways within Sylvaneth Allegiance to counterbalance out within the Alarial build those 9 Kurnoth Hunters, or the other 2, or within the Durthu the 12 Kurnoth Hunters, or the Drycha the 15 Kurnoth Hunters going up. So,
but don't you think that 400 points of allies could fill that hole that the hunters were providing?
Yeah, potentially.
You could go to 2 drops potentially.
Yeah.
But possibly fill that damage hole.
Yeah, so the obvious one that you and I talked about like the same day was the Frosty Phoenix, the Froststar Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have magic, you get that up on a 2-up, and then of course the 4-up, Feel No Pain.
Yep.
That can put out some damage, particularly now you're not going to be able to heal it unless you take an allied, whatever, light mage, whatever it is with the healing. But yeah. Which you won't. And yeah, so and then I think, I mean, the obvious is, yeah, get some Volkite Berserkers in there with teleporting. Well, I mean, what do you think, Tom, might be other potential?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't have an easy answer to this.
Yeah.
Yes, I haven't sat down and ran I haven't fully ran those numbers, but I just wonder if some of those gaps. So, like, for example, so here's one possibility.
Yeah.
What about 15? So to replace your Kurnoth Hunters, you ran like 15 Thunderers with mortars and a chemist.
Sure.
Okay. So then you'd get 30 shots at like what, 4-up, 3-up, no Ren, D3 damage.
Yeah.
Some of those are going to land.
The one, I mean, so this gets into, at least in my mind, a question of aesthetics, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a lot of us, we love Sylvaneth, and many of us, we love our, Tzeentch, our faction, because we can play it competitively within that faction, and we don't have to. Personally, I am not interested in allies outside of one or, a small number of models, because I am very heavy aesthetically on one faction for various reasons. Okay, so I don't. That's not really a solution for me, and maybe it would be for many competitive players. I don't think it's going to be a solution for many Sylvaneth players, though. But yeah, no, I mean that's a fair point, though.
I think so. What I would say is this: is that I think your solution is going to have to rely in something amongst the Elfie models. And so what I mean by that is that you may actually end up finding something in either Wanderers, unlikely, or one of the renewed Elven lines, if there are allies there.
Sure.
That where you could potentially make up that difference.
Yeah.
And be able to aesthetically make it work.
Right. I mean, I've got a number of, like, we could talk for an hour about Sylvaneth. I've got a number of thoughts on them. I mean, the Kurnoth Hunters is the obvious starting point. Okay, so one thought is that I suspect Sylvaneth are going, from a competitive standpoint, they are going to become more of a horde army.
Really?
They're going to get more efficiency within the troops, within battle lines.
Dryads and Tree
Revenants in particular. Mm-hmm. I hope that's not the case, again, from an aesthetic argument. Why one of the variables for again, I'm speaking personally, but I play Sylvaneth is because I play elite armies. I'm a little worried. One of the points of concern, I'm curious what your guys' points of concern are. It's like, what are your potential concerns or major potential points of concern about the new GH? Is that we're going to see a strong push in the direction of elite armies struggling to compete. Maybe not. Maybe there'll be there's a lot of variables that can balance that out. And we obviously are dealing with a small amount of information right now. So if you look at Winterleaf, for example, Winterleaf right now, you cannot take a Sisters of the Thorn Wanderers, which we know are going to be an allies, with their Shield of Thorn. So Aaron Bailey was the first one I knew who hit upon this in the Let's Chat Sylvaneth thread. Nico was on it pretty early too. Shield of Thorns, if anybody doesn't know, it allows you to reroll the save. Yeah, you can reroll your saves, and the save that you make, you do mortal wounds back. So of course with Dryads, you can get that down to where you're doing mortal wounds on a 3-up, 2-up save, mortal wounds back on a 3-up. It's ridiculous. All right, so if you've got a lot of Dryads running on the board, with Winterleaf, it's got a lot of advantages. I think that can make that battalion. That would be my bet, to where that Winterleaf, we're going to see a lot more Winterleaf Wargrove with the information I'm dealing with right now, and with just Sisters of the Thorn alone being an ally within Winterleaf.
All right. Hold on, I've got your allies for you. You ready?
Okay.
Luminarch of Hysh and a Life Battle Mage. Okay?
Yeah.
Now that sounds like a joke, but here's my real answer.
Do you think that they'll actually let them have the mages?
Collegiate Arcane?
Collegiate Arcane.
I doubt it.
Let's say yes for the moment.
Sure.
Okay. Walk down the road for me. Who knows? I don't know what the heck Sylvaneth are going to be able to ally with.
Yeah.
But let's just say they can.
Okay.
That's 340 current points. Okay. The Luminarch with the mage on it. Like, you can take the Luminarch with the mage on it, and you get the other mage. He's another. So it's another 100. It's 340 total.
Yeah.
Okay. The Luminarch's only 240, much cheaper than the Huracan. You could then, you've got your Healy buff spell, or your Healy spell out of the Life Mage that also drops the 6-up ward save shield.
6-up ward, right? Yeah.
The Luminarch itself projects a 6-up ward save.
6-up ward
wounds.
Yeah.
So you can double 6-up ward save a key critical unit that's on the line.
I like where your head's at. Yeah.
While healing them. At the same time, this is also, both of those wizards are now unbinding, like the one on the Luminarch and the other guy at +1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the Luminarch gives +1 to unbind. Yep.
Correct. And you've got a giant laser beam that's a 30-inch range. It's like a truck when it hits. Okay, like, let's not mess around. And you've got the guy on top of the Luminarch. Do you remember what spell he has?
I just remember it's really good.
Okay, he's got an arcane bolt. This is D3 mortal wounds.
Yeah.
That if there's more than 10 models, it's 2d3. And if there's more than 20 models, it's 3d3.
Wow.
Now, in a world of horde discounts, I'm guessing you're going to see a lot more armies with 20 models on the table.
Yeah.
Blasting those armies for 3d3 mortal wounds on a pretty easy to cast spell.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, man, I like that. That's definitely within the aesthetic wheelhouse, because you can do some conversions.
It's a Life Mage. And yeah, exactly. Like, it's not like I haven't taken you crazy far afield, right? Where I've said, like, put an Arcanaut Ironclad in here with your trees, or something like that.
Right.
I'm just
too many points, but you could do a frigate with 10 Caradron popping out.
All I'm saying is, if you look at the picture of the Battle Mage, it looks like a dude who lives in the woods and hangs out with trees. Okay, that's that thing. I think adding the potential spread shield / double 6-up, it's mortal wound protection. There's good range power here. It deals with the new horde meta.
Yeah.
And it's good unbinding for things like Tzeentch and other casty crap.
Absolutely.
So I'm just saying, at 340.
Yeah, dude. I did a long while back. I did a mixed order list with Paul Conti when he was doing a show with James, and it was basically that. It was like some Sylvaneth with Durthu and Kurnoth Hunters, and then Luminarch. I think there was a what's the Archmage with his Shield of Sapphire.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Mortal Wounds is the obvious counter to Sylvaneth, so way to shore that up. And you don't have to shore it up dramatically.
No.
Do it moderately. It'll go a long way.
They could take part of your points that you're spending on Kurnoth bow people, because you're shoring up that range damage with the 30-inch laser,
right? And
with the other range output, right?
Right.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That would be my argument. So, anywho, just a thought. While we were talking, I was trying to think of what I would pick as an ally that would shore up their weaknesses and give them other interesting ways to play around with their sort of power, right? So, yeah, there you go.
Should Darther go down or up, or should he stay the same?
I think he should probably stay the same. I mean, like, he's expensive. He is allyable, right? He's on the line.
Yeah.
He's on the line.
He's not that efficient because of the Wildwoods. He gets plus D3 attacks.
Right.
You don't want to run Dorothy with 3 attacks.
No, absolutely not. I don't think he's actually. Yeah, I don't think he would actually take him as an ally. It's funny that he's at that level.
Sure.
I think he's fine because yes, he's a little variable, but when he hits, God, he hits.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Like he will reduce enemies to rubble pretty fast if you get a turn with even moderately good dice, right? Where like you hit the necessary average or slightly above, that thing is dead.
Right.
Okay, like whatever you just hit isn't taking place. Stir no longer appearing in this game is done.
Yeah. I think I did 30 damage to a unit a couple weeks ago.
I did 30 damage to a unit. That's one guy. Yeah, I mean, that's Scarbrand level damage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think he might be an interesting example of where you could save, again, because he is an example, definitely, of the difference between mixed order efficiency and Sylvaneth efficiency, where you can drop a little bit because he is only viable, really useful within Sylvaneth Allegiance, save a few points within a competitive 2000 list, even things out a little. There's a number of examples like that.
Nope, we lost him.
Yeah, look at losing Tyler.
More viable, etc. That's very themey, fluffy, etc. Tree Revenants, there's a lot of debate. I suspect they're going to be a minimum of 10, which I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, but they'll be 140 at 10. Maybe 160. I think they'll either be 5 for 80 or 10 minimum for 140. I think that's fine. I'm really, really hoping that Dryads do not go up to a minimum of 20. That's gonna see again. That's the main thing that I'm worried about. Apparently, like Doom of Darkness, I need to watch that video. Is that
you'll feel his pain.
If you look at so a lot of 7F players are praying that Dreadwood Wargrove becomes really viable. If you make a Drycha the General, Spite Revenants, 80 for 5. All right, you have to take 4 of them, so 320 there. That's your battle line, and then Drycha, whatever, 260, 280. But if you have to take 40 freaking Spite Revenants to run Dreadwood Wargrove, you've nixed Dreadwood Wargrove.
Right. No, I hear you. I wouldn't see Dryads going to 20, to be completely honest. I mean, maybe I'll be wrong. Yeah. I don't think we're going to see those min numbers shoot up all across the board as like these
I hope not. Yeah.
Filled portents have implied. I think what you're going to see is the armies that are supposed to be horde armies that are supposed to have these things will have some of their min units adjusted up.
Right.
Where it's meant to be the cheap throwaways, they'll go up. I've never pictured Dryads as a horde army.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if they went to 20. I do think you're probably right about Tree Revenants just because 5 is weird, but who knows? I mean, that being said, never underestimate that GW tends to mark to the box that they sell it in.
Right. Yeah.
And Clan Rats come in a box of 20. They don't come in a box of 10.
Okay.
Don't let anybody fool you.
Yeah. Okay.
So Tree Revenants come in a box of 5.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm just saying.
Right.
I'm not. I don't think that's like their golden rule that they won't violate, but I do think it's probably something they consider.
Right.
So.
Yeah, summation. I mean, I'm pretty hopeful. Like, I'm hopeful that they have an obvious thing that they need to balance out with Seventh Allegiance, and they'll find ways to do that. And then hopefully, the allies will help as well, and then they'll make more battalions viable, and we'll be good. We'll stay somewhere close to where we are right now, not lighting up the scene, but competitive.
Sure. All right. Well, we're getting on to it. Is there any last ones that either of you wanted to touch on? Okay, go, Tom. Take your last one.
We need to talk about the new Flaming Overlords.
Yeah.
All right, talk about the Flaming Overlords, Tom.
So, Fire Slayers are very aggressively pointed now. Assuming they're still following the point values that have been the experimental point values.
Well, in the article they have posted, they talked about Fire Slayers being reduced in cost.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's the same reduction as were in the experimental points, I don't know, but they will be cheaper than they are currently printed in some way. They have confirmed that.
So that's good. Now,
that's good. Okay. Well,
they're previously.
That's the kind of insightful commentary you can only get from our show, folks. It's cheaper. That's good. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
But more importantly, though, and here's where it matters.
Yep.
Is that see, now you got me. I lost my train of thought.
Your point is it's just going to be a sea of Volkite Berserkers tunneling
naked dwarves
at all tournaments. Yeah. And it's not just going to be KO, it's going to be Sylvaneth, it's going to be Stormcast. Right now, that is the most striking ally choice with the present point
assuming cost. You can get into Fire Slayers, and we don't know who will be able to get in.
Yes.
Now, we've also been told that Fire Slayers will fight for anybody with Urgold. So, from the fluff. So, with that being true, if there's any faction that should be universal, it should be Fire Slayers.
Yeah.
Now, that said, right now you'll be able to get a 25 block of Volkites and a teleporter tunneler to buff them for 400 points, for 380.
Yeah, I think that's right.
If they have a reduction at max unit size at 30 points, at 30 models, which is their current max, if they have that max, then you could potentially fit a whole block of 30 in there with a tunneler. Now,
you're thinking a 40 point discount.
A 40, yeah, I would guess like it wouldn't be a high discount, but it would be like a 40-point discount or something like that.
Yeah, at least 40. Yeah,
something that was 360 down to 320. That I could see something like that.
Yeah.
Now, here's where the rubber's going to meet the road, though, is their big drawback. Like, I've made a bunch of lists because, like, way before all this was announced, like, I had already planned on mixing my KO and my Fire Slayers. Like, my aesthetic, like, I built them for that.
Yeah.
And so I've built a number of just mono Fire Slayer lists as well. And the big problem they have is drops. Drops are the big question mark for Fire Slayers because no matter how hard you try, it's real hard to get in under 5 drops. It's like
Fire Slayer's Allegiance.
Fire Slayer's Allegiance.
Okay.
But there's 2 mega battalions coming in the General's Handbook.
Right. Why is that? In summary, why is that an issue? The drops.
Well, because being able to take drops from your enemy, like to be able to choose who goes first. Like that's a really big deal for any unit that can drop 9 inches out.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking that isn't necessarily. Oh, I guess you're right because a lot of armies are probably in that maybe 3 drop range. So if you're doing 5 drops, you're not going to bid. But if you could be maybe even at 4 drops. So you're saying that most armies at a tournament are going to be less than 5 drops.
Your hyper competitive armies are generally going to be 3 drops or less. So that they can decide who goes first. Not always, but again, this has been anybody
we should look at that.
Yeah, because anybody that's over 5, like let me just say this, like anybody that was over my 3 drops, I made them pay dearly for it.
Well, let's assume that the average moves up by 1 drop, by the way.
Yeah, because of allies.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it would be 2 drop armies. Which again, okay, 2 to 4 drop armies. Right. I mean, the reality is that they couldn't get in under 5. Like you'd have to run 2 battalions, and even then, you almost always had like you couldn't fit everything you wanted, so you were almost always having to force additional units in. And not to say that, not even to suggest that Lords of the Lodge now is going to be like half of its effectiveness, which was modifying the die roll for the turn once per game. That you can't do that anymore.
Right.
So like Lords of the Lodge, which was their other go-to, their high damage battalion, is out the window now. So we don't even know how it's going to get recosted, if at all, because it was 160, which was just crazy expensive.
Did it have anything useful?
No, like they had one that was basically like the most terrible character on a Magma Droth and 3 battle line units.
Okay, I was just curious. Okay.
So like you basically had to run that battalion and one of the other battalions and then fill in the gaps with the rest of it. And it was just like it was never real. It wasn't real efficient even at the reduced point values. But if they get a 1-drop battalion, where then they can sprinkle in allies if they even need allies.
Yeah,
it's going to be it'll be a different ball game for Fire Slayers. Yeah, and then again, if anybody. So, by the way, for those that don't understand the value of the like Fire Slayer popping up, like the teleporty airdrop Fire Slayer bomb, is that when they pop up, they're 9 inches off the line. They can on charges they re-roll one of those dice, so it's 2d6 re-roll one of their dice. So on a 9-inch charge, you're going to land 9-inch charges more than half the time statistically.
Right.
And on a charge, like if you equip them with shields, which I would always do.
I was about to ask. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I would always equip them with shields. On the charge, you're gonna roll a dice for every model that's charging, whether they're within range or not.
Yeah, regardless of where they are. Yeah.
You're gonna roll 25 dice. Every 6 is a mortal wound. That hits before combat starts.
Yep.
So when you charge a monster, you're gonna shave statistically 4 to 5 mortal wounds off of the top of their wound chart. Like you're going to come in with that, and then all of your dwarves are 2 attacks each with Ren -1. Hitting on like 4 up, 4 up, 4 up, or 4 up, 3 up, 1 damage with -1 Ren. And they at 25 models they have a ward save, so they'll in the first round of combat they'll be 5 up, 4 up. Right.
Yeah.
Well, they got 4 like no. What do you call it? What's the 40K term?
Feel no pain.
Feel no pain. They have a 4 up, feel no pain. Once they lose 5 models, it goes up to a 5 up, feel no pain, and then once they get under 10, it goes to a 6 up, feel no pain. So the reality is that like that's a pretty scary block that's going to be in your face, and that can hold some damage for a while.
Yeah.
After you get to turn 2, they re-roll all failed wounds from the hero that's behind them.
Yeah.
So
I think
if
it doesn't change, I think you're going to see that in a lot of Sylvaneth builds. It was the Frost Phoenix, and that was the first thing that came to mind because of the feel no pain protection and the bodies, and the mobility, the mortal wound protection, the mortal wound save, and the bodies. That's a great addition to a lot of Sylvaneth builds. But anyway, yeah, and probably.
And then the honorable mention, I think, is just a transition because like I did my Fire Slayers. The honorable mention is Swift Talk agents. Because,
yeah, I don't see that with them.
No, not with them. But I'm just saying the honorable mention for winners, because if they can have 400 flex points to mix in other units, Swift Talk agents are probably going to get pretty scary. Because if they have their main thing that they can drop, they can pull in troops from the Arcane College potentially, which is going to gain their keyword. Not Arcane College, but the other high
Eldritch Council, yeah.
Yeah, the Eldritch Council from their battalion, and then they can pull in 400 points of other units. That you may have a very tight force in Swift Hawk. That might surprise some people.
Okay, we should talk more about that sometime.
I will be fascinated if that world comes to pass.
Yeah, I'm still not seeing it with those Skycutters. I mean, obviously the mobility is amazing, but just the output, and anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah,
we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do that in the post. Like once GHB2 comes out, we'll actually have to do the let's pick the winners game where we all predict who's going to be the big meta dudes in 4 to 6 months or whatever. All right, so Tyler, anybody else you wanted to hit on before we call it a night?
Well, I wanted to touch on a couple of questions before we go. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so getting back to the topic of, again, elegance, or whatever we want to call it. And like I said, for my money, I often think a lot about, excuse me, speed of play, which I've called myself out frequently for needing to get faster playing Sylvaneth.
Not you, but just in general, yes.
Just in general. Like I could never play a massive army because I'd never, get past round 2 at my current speed. I'm getting faster, but still need to get faster. Anyway, so speed of play, simplicity of play, that's core part of elegance, and variety of play. So I love the meta because for my money, we've had a lot of nice variety. It's been changing, it's been evolving. You guys have spoken to this. All right, so those 3 variables, do you guys think that GH2, how do you think GH 2017 and the meta going forward is going to score on those 3 variables, and then score overall with the experience, the attraction, the strength, the enjoyment, etc. of this game.
Sure. My general feeling would be variety is definitely going to increase for obvious reasons. Many more things will be viable. Many more combinations will be viable. Like, I don't know how there could be an argument made that variety doesn't increase.
Yeah.
A long time ago, people were like, well, there'll be winners and there'll just be 1 army per alliance and blah, 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 blah. People made these dire predictions and nothing like that came true. Not even close. Even within a single faction, that is often not the case.
Yeah.
Right?
Also, and just to couch this more specifically, obviously we're talking about match play, especially competitive play. A subset in my mind of variety, necessarily within that context, is viability in competitive play. So, and viability / parity. So do you necessarily think that parity, viability will increase relative to what we've seen?
Sure, you throw enough spaghetti at the wall, something's going to stick. Yeah, I mean, yes. They're throwing a whole lot of spaghetti, homie. You know what I mean? Like, some noodles are going to fall, but there's going to be a lot of noodles left on that wall.
Well, you hear these horror stories with allies in 7th 40K, which I know is apples and oranges with the allies that they're putting forward with AOS, where it sounded as if there were not the level of variety and viability of a lot of different varied builds within 7th 40K as opposed to what we see within AOS right now.
Well, I think that the Allies rules were very different in 7th 40K, so it's not really a fair comparison. Right. But at the same time, those Allies rules also relied heavily on statistical outliers that were so far out of the norm, like individual units that were so far out of the norm, utilizing weapons that acted so far out of the norm, like D weapons and stuff. It just created an extremely skewed world. Things in AOS aren't that far apart for the most part, right? So I wouldn't see that coming to pass. So that's my first thought. I don't have concerns about that. I think for the most part, this will actually push most things closer together, as far as competitiveness goes. Now, as far as like speed, right? I mean, simplicity, I don't know what, like, we're definitely adding complexity to the game. By introducing allies. But it's an optional level of complexity that people don't necessarily need to participate in, right? The question will be, can you win without allies and, and be incredibly viable in tournaments? I imagine the answer is going to be sometimes yes, sometimes no, depending on what you're trying to achieve, right? Just like traditional to God bless it, this is going to be the show where I talk about Magic more than anything else. But that's fine. Traditionally, single color decks don't often win like tournaments that have a large enough pool of cards to pull from, right? If you look over the sweep of history of Magic, but that's not always the case. Okay, like it depends on the time and blah 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 and a lot of other factors. Taken in the aggregate, it's true that multicolored decks are stronger than single colored decks. But that is not true in all cases or at all points in time or in all situations. So whatever. Okay.
So you're not saying complexity for what you would characterize as complexity for complexity's sake.
Correct. I think it's, I will say that I think what they're adding is for the most part, positive depth that to me, things like the ally system don't add any initial barrier of entry to the game. They only allow a higher top end. Now, the speed thing, that's where we have the biggest risk right now. Like there's a red flag over speed because there is going to be some added incentive to large units. Now, how good that is, how much that matters, again, it's probably going to vary greatly. Having 2 big cheap units of 40 guys doesn't matter if you can't keep them both Battle Shock immune, and I can pick the one that isn't and just rail it off the table, right? Through Battle Shock. So, like, how viable massive units are going to be will have a lot to do with that army's ability to interact with the Battle Shock rules or protect those things, or how tough those giant blocks are, or whatever. But there's a risk here. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, we're all doomed because it's going to take 60 hours to move all our crap around. I know I'll still be playing elite armies, like that's for sure, because I hate moving crap around the table.
The game for me, the game breaks down when it gets way too, I don't know what model size it feels like it starts to break down. I mean, I know that's a biased opinion, but I definitely have experienced that for me personally. It feels like the game starts to break down. You're moving, you're potentially doing a double. You're moving in the hero phase, then you're moving in the movement phase, and then you're shooting, and then maybe you're charging into combat, and then you're piling in, and then you're attacking, and then your opponent's turn, you're attacking, and it's like all these different activations, and it can just get crazy.
Well, I mean,
I'll say this.
Right.
I've never finished a game to completion
in a tournament. Yeah, sure.
In a tournament. No, I take that back. No, I don't. I don't think I've ever finished a game 5 turns.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, you were not slow playing in our game. I mean, we were chatting. We were playing casually. We had we did not have a brisk pace, to say the least. But
But the reality is that like every attack roll on any of my dudes generated generally 3 rolls.
Yeah.
Like on any model. And so the problem is that it's the bulk. And then on top of that, I had that stupid allegiance ability that makes me roll a dice every time I attack. And so
it's the worst.
The worst. But what I would say is this. That is probably the tip of the iceberg. Like I suspect that armies like mine are going to be more the norm, which means you're talking a model count of what, 80 models ish, 80 to 100 models, and it's going to be painful at times with the number of models. And so TOs are going to have to deal with incomplete games and how that weighs into results.
Like it is the most dangerous area we're about to enter into, and I don't know how it's going to happen, but I will say that there are going to be some armies that when you line up on it, you're like, well, we're going to get 3 turns max.
Yeah, and a number of lists. I mean, Sylvaneth like to play for late game.
Sure,
we will lay you down early, and then we take the game for rounds 4 or 5.
Well, this is an interesting thing. So, like, I've been playing a lot of 40K recently, right? And we finish our games in record time. Because for multiple reasons. One, we have much less battle shock immunity. It's much harder to become immune to battle shock in general. If you're just playing like sort of straight normal missions, things get battle shocked like crazy, which is great. It's good. Like we're too afraid of battle shock in AOS. I wish it wasn't so easy to make things battle shock immune, especially in large blankets, because it's great. Models get gripped and ripped, baby. Get it out of here. Get it. Anyway, and 2, everybody shoots, so things are dying. Like power is projected everywhere on the table. And 3, there's not a lot of combat pile-in as much in 40K. And combat pile-in, that particular slice of movement is actually the slowest movement. Like really watch your game.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can move 40 guys.
Try doing it instead of the woods.
Sure.
Yeah. Drive your opponent crazy.
I bet. Like I can move 40 guys across the table relatively quickly. Right. Yeah. I measure the front row, like I recreate my front row, and then I just take the rest and go, and I'm done. Right. It's not hard to move 40 dudes. It's hard to move 40 dudes in combat in the situation you want with the proper pile-ins, paying attention to moving to the nearest model, making sure I'm maximizing the number of ones in each weapon reach while not pulling in the unit I don't want in combat, while also pulling in the unit I do want to pull into combat. And That's the catch point right now in the game. Piling in, which you generally do less of in 40K because things die faster in the way in, things get shot, there's less combat focused units, etc. That's what slows the game down. It's the most time intensive portion of the game. Watch Tom pile in. It's a freaking geometry test. Like, I mean, because he knows it's important. It's a critical moment in the game. It behooves
I've won games with my pile-in on my Chaos Warriors.
Yes, it behooves you to do it carefully. Unfortunately, it's super time-consuming. And the bigger those units get, and the multiple big units smashing into each other, where now the pile-ins get real complicated real fast.
Go watch my video if you have any question on pile-ins.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's going to get slow, right? So it's not as though the troops themselves necessitate, like a Cunning Ruck of 40 dudes doesn't add any time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like two 40 packs of Cunning Ruck boys don't slow a game down because they just sit there. Maybe they run forward once where, again, I take the front line, I push the 30 forward behind those 10, and then I go chicka, 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 chicka. Their dice rolling takes the time, right? Not the roll 160 dice. That takes time. Their movement doesn't add any time because those guys, if they don't They're not sweeping across the board to pile in, right?
Right.
For them, it's all dice rolling. So, you know, so I shouldn't say they don't slow the game down by movement. Let me be very clear. The point I mean, I think it's the biggest area of sensitivity. Yes. Yep.
It's gonna be exciting.
Yeah.
So, that being said, like how certain elite units respond and get their points, there's a lot to read from that. You know what I mean? Like if all elite units go up in cost to some degree and hordes get a discount, well, yeah, the meta's going to shift, and welcome to the world of that. And that's going to be 2017.
Yeah.
2017, the 2017, 2018 season. Get used to that. That will be the world. Now, that's not to say that 2018 doesn't come around and they're like, well, we went too far. We wheel it back.
Made a mistake.
Yeah.
So
so I think we're all on the same page. I mean, from a simplicity standpoint, what that is, the speed is the game slowing down due to increasing complexity in the form of a lot more models. Maybe more minimum unit sizes or a considerable discount with massive regiments, or as you're saying with elite units. Yeah, just something there. That's my main concern at the moment with what we've seen so far. Certainly scenarios, and I mean, as the last thing I did want to mention to you guys, the schemes that we used at Slobberknocker. Which did I ever email you? I was supposed to email you to actually give you a heads up that we were going to use the schemes. Did I do that?
Did you guys use like our schemes?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, awesome. No, but great.
Okay. Sorry, I couldn't remember if I actually emailed you guys. I was supposed to email you on behalf of the TO Ken. He just wanted to make sure it was cool. I was like, oh yeah. I mean, they'd be thrilled.
You gave the right answer. Of course it's cool. I like my problem is, by the way, public shaming number 2. Tom, finish editing the skirmish document so we can publish that so we can
I'm cutting sprues. Sorry, I'm busy right now.
Well, I appreciate that. No, that's good. Keep modeling, keep hobbying, Tom. But as like we need to get the skirmish thing finished so we can formalize that, because I would like to do actual prints of those cards.
I've had people like my blog where I announced it as like a subtle reminder, like, hey, we want you working on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So please leave a comment if you want to see Tom finish the skirmish pack and finish the scheme pack so we can finish the scheme pack. By the way, the schemes are done. We just need some additional work from Tom on them. If you want to see that happen, maybe leave a comment below and make fun of Tom a little. Tell him to get on it. Just to say, Tom, get on it. That would be fine. Okay, so anyways, awesome. I'm glad to hear you used them. That's great.
Yeah, so yeah, Ken really liked them. But again, they were elegant, my keyword of the show. And so I just want to give you guys some feedback.
How'd they perform?
A little bit of context.
Please.
Yeah, so he changed it up a little bit. So on the day he decided to change, actually I need to talk with him about why he decided to do this. So he was going to stick with the format of come up, take your 7 cards, play 1 card per game, 5 games, so you have 2 left over, like a la NashCon.
Yep.
He decided to change it up, where each game we would choose 4 cards, play 1, and then reshuffle for the next game. Choose 4 cards, play 1. So, without getting into, I don't want to bias it too much, what's your guys' instant take on...
You would have a higher success rate on 1 out of 4. My guess is scheme success increased to about 80-85% eyeballing it.
Yep. Much less variation.
So I need to go back and look at and talk with Ken. So I'll do this, and maybe we'll get an email thread and get you guys on it, and we'll see the data. Generally, I'm almost positive that's what we saw. We saw what was the? I couldn't remember the mean, the average. What was the
60%? 3 out of 5. 60% was the average.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's interesting. I was thinking it was 2. I couldn't remember if it was 2 or 3.
And I would imagine it would go to 4 with your variation.
I would say it's 3 point. It's somewhere in the 3.54, somewhere in that range. Equivalent.
By the way, the original design was that you would do, like when I originally proposed it, David actually changed off of what I had suggested originally, which was to do what you did, but not with that number.
Yeah.
My argument was at the start of the game, you draw 2 or 3 and choose 1.
Yeah, 4 is too many.
Yes. Opinion. Like the problem is at a 4 grip, you're always going to find one that should be close
that you're
to
strong at.
Yeah, that you're strong at.
Yeah.
And you're not making too hard of a decision. I don't mind the draw every game format. I mean, that's how Malifaux plays, by the way.
Right.
Which uses that. Like you draw at the start of each game. The interesting part about Malifaux, which you could never duplicate in AOS, is that you know your scheme before you make your list.
Oh.
Okay.
Huh.
Like you actually decide the scheme, then you make your list.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah,
never
not-
the case. That's
not-
why they need to be more variable in AOS and more broadly construed to be able
Right.
to be achieved by more armies, because you've got the list you've got for the most part.
Right. Right. Okay, so I'm going to go back and talk with more players to, just ask them their honest opinion, honest take on it. Those who I did speak to, it's pretty unanimous, were in favor of it, even including the, if anybody doesn't know, we use the NashCon scoring system, which is a pretty classic scoring system, 20 for major, a 10 for minor victory, a 7 for draw.
No, it's 15 for major, because your
15
your major plus the scheme gave you 25.
Yeah, my bad. Thank you. 15 for major. So we repeated it. So 5 for minor and 0 for major loss. And then the schemes were respectively 10. Okay, so actually maybe he did do. I think he actually did do 20. I think he did 20 and 10. I think a 20 was major.
Okay,
so that was a variable. Okay, so yeah, it was pretty unanimous across the board. But I probably spoke to 5 other players, so we had about 20. It's not a huge sample size. Now, there were some comments on the format. Some people thought they were too easy. Some people thought they were about right. I need to get more information on what the split was. I seem to recall with us, it was about 3 were pretty straightforward, 2 were challenging but viable, and 2 were going to be really difficult.
Yes, that's if you just drew 7. Given the way we designed them, that was your most likely. Like we had designed the 21 that we gave him to have that ratio happen on the majority of draws.
Okay.
Yeah. So
now, did you guys ever
sounds...
Yeah, that was I told you guys when we did the recap with Kel, that was spot on what my deck was. Now, did you guys get much aggregate data on whether that was the
No,
general?
we haven't. We have not
Okay.
collated that data yet.
Because one of the things I brought up with you is the potential of I draw 7 cards, I get 5 really, for whatever reason, 5 really bad ones for my army, and only 2 good ones. Let's say, that is, you have those statistical outliers.
But I don't know that most
to what degree.
Like
to what degree do you think
lists, though? And this is what I would push back on. Most tournament lists, like any one tournament list, you should have like a 3-2-2. But because different lists have different strengths, like every list may have 3 different strengths, it's going to hit different scenario. Like, so what may be easy for Slanesh list, which is high mobility, run across the table, get off there at table edge, is very difficult in like my Nurgle list, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the fact is that 3-2-2 holds true across most lists based on the different strengths that are there.
That's fair. That certainly matches my experience, Tom, now at the 2 events.
Yeah.
It seems at the moment like a bit of a red herring. I don't think there would actually be these seemingly potential in a vacuum statistical outliers, where you could get a deck that is extraordinarily difficult for you to achieve, a reasonable number of those schemes in your games. Okay, so I don't, based on these tournaments, I don't necessarily believe that. There were a couple of cards, and they were actually the same. So a couple of people talked about Map Maker and the Totem one. We've already talked about that, so we don't have to necessarily talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
We as well went through why you guys chose to do that, and I tried to express that view, which does make sense to me.
I still disagree with it.
Yeah, I'm not. 100%.
You can blame me distinctly. Totem guy is all me, baby. I believe in the design of Totem. I really do.
I fought against that card from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I put my foot down and said, look, to the guy who has the totems and achieves this is such a good card for that particular slice. It is a 10. It's a hot 10 for that guy. It's worth it being a 3 for everybody else. Suck it, everyone else. Not everything needs to be for you at all points in time.
Absolutely. No.
6 other good ones.
Yeah, the schemes were, I got all 5 of my schemes.
Nice. Awesome.
Nice. They were games that was challenging and things that not go my way, but they were distinctly less challenging than Ashcon.
Sure. If you're drawing a grip of 4, it's going to be like, again, statistically, that means you should have 1 you can achieve in every draw of 4.
Yeah.
Like that's how those statistics should work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the idea is that statistically you have a good shot at achieving all of them, and you're on average going to get 4 of the 5.
Right. Just because you will get screwed out of 1.
Yeah. Like a 1, something bad's going to happen, a bad dice roll. And so statistically, it should be you would expect to see 4 out of 5.
That's why I said I actually bet it's 85%, because I bet if you looked at it, it would drift just above the 4 out of 5.
Have you thought about? I'm sure you've thought about a number of different combinations and ways of doing this. Have you thought about? You draw 7, you can put 1 back.
Oh, sure.
I like that.
Yeah, that'd be neat. There'd be lots of good ways to do that. Yeah, sure. You could do like a draw 7, bury 1, and draw another one or something like that. Yeah, there could be lots of fun ways to play with it.
Just try to find that sweet spot, you know.
Yeah,
because I thought Slobberknocker went too far.
Into making it achievable. I think that what I want to see, but nonetheless, I'm not like, oh no, curses, I gnash my teeth at you. Awesome experimentation, man. That's what I want to see. Like, I want to see people. I would love it to see TOs run wild with these schemes and try them in tons of different ways. Because let me tell you what I am not. A genius who completely understands how they will work out in all scenarios and has picked the best of all, the Leibniz-like best of all possible worlds, right?
Sure.
Like, I don't know. I know that I know that the core of this design is good and that it will encourage fun on the table. I am positive of that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you can't implement it in better ways than I have thought to implement it. Okay.
Yeah.
And there could be lots of like draw and bury. There could also be interesting things that happen where after rounds where certain triggers happen, you could choose to bury and redraw.
Oh, that's
something like that, right?
Sure.
So like maybe upon a trigger, like at the end of day 1, you get to do this, or maybe twice within the tournament. If X, then you get to bury 1 and draw a new one, right? So it could even have variability to it happening. There could be lots of different ways to play around with it. You don't want to let people dump the whole grip, obviously, and just end up with a new hand, or you're going to get right back in the situation you described with everybody drawing 4 every time and always having it be eminently achievable. You want there to be tension there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you're feeling tension, if you're feeling frustration, then you're in the right spot.
Right. Because now you're engaged and you're thinking not only about how do I beat this strategy and beat my opponent, but how do I achieve this thing?
Yeah.
Right.
I think all 5 of my opponents got their scheme.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
By the way, can we ask, what was the problem with Mapmaker? By the by, I love that one is one they hit on. One of my favorites, of course. All these are the ones that people are going to hate.
It's the obvious. It's the mobility issue. Certain armies struggling to be able to complete it with like Iron Jaws.
And devoting 2 units. Like units, like people have to commit from the beginning of the game 2 units, and the reality is that most finely tuned tournament armies don't have 2 spare units to throw away.
Yeah.
Based on synergies and based on what their needs are.
Which all of these things you have just said are why I love Mapmaker.
No, absolutely. Because what it does is it pushes against the expectation of the known.
Yeah, I have less of an issue with Mapmaker than Totem, and I can understand Ben's perspective on Totem. But there's something, I don't know. That's what we talked about that already. But go ahead.
It's fine. I get the Totem thing. I totally get it. When people complain, I'm like, your concerns are valid, and I don't care. Please address them to that brick wall over there. Like, it's not for you.
Go talk to the corn player.
The Mapmaker thing is specifically designed to cause tension amongst finely tuned tournament armies.
Yeah.
Right. Wherein they have a tight block synergy that moves and acts in a very particular pre-programmed way. This says pull it apart. Right. And it creates an uncomfortable tension for them, which is perfect, because the looser army that does have some waste, they can afford to ditch a couple vampire whatever dumb crap they've got racing along the side of the board. Right. When I did Mapmaker in Game 5 at NashCon, I took my 2 Chaos Chariots and just ran them along the edge. Like they didn't need to be in this game. They were just there to fill out points. So anyway, that's interesting. It's the kind of thing I definitely want to get out there. I definitely want to make a nice card pack out of it. There are things I want to do with it. We'll see once we kick Tom in the butt.
I really wish you guys would hurry up and do it, because I kind of think that's about as blunt as I get.
Thank you.
I
agree.
Sometimes I think I don't know, you might be undervaluing. Maybe I'm either overvaluing or you're undervaluing, or maybe we're somewhere in the middle. One of those options.
I think you're overvaluing us.
I've gone to 2 turns. I mean, I've played now with quite a few different scoring systems, And this one, I thought they were all great. Happy to play with all of them again. This one, I told you guys, this one still now after a second event stands out as what I suspect, if I were to place a bet on what the most competitive players would consider a scoring system they like the most, it would be this one.
I don't
and that
think
it would
so.
also, you don't think so?
I don't think
It would
so.
also,
Competitive players are going to hate.
I don't think that's true at all. I don't think that is true at all. Nope. I disagree completely.
maybe that's wrong.
There is a certain psychographic profile of competitive player that will dislike this, and there is a certain psychographic profile of competitive player that loves this.
Yeah.
That's
So like
true.
David Griffin. David Griffin, very competitive guy, but he loves it. Obviously, David won Adepticon last year, so yeah. I mean, you give a lot of different examples, but maybe I'm a better way of saying it. I would place a bet that this would be relative to what I've seen. This is hitting the sweet spot better than any other alternative that I've seen for the aggregate psychographic profiles. The aggregate player base.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, gentlemen, guess what? It's time to end this show. All right. But I want to, people who are still watching or who watch us in the future, I would like to announce that we made it. I was watching the clock. This is officially the longest episode of Warhammer Weekly in the history of the show. So, as I said at the top, there you go. Tyler, your streak continues, sir.
Thank you.
You have the crown. So there we go. Tyler, thanks, man. It really is a pleasure. We go so long because it is so much fun to talk to you, brother. So it's
probably got 5 thumb downs right there.
So thank you very much, everybody, for watching, especially those of you who stuck through the end. I know it is super late, but it has been so much fun. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tom. As always, we'll see you next Wednesday.